The champagne glass shattered against marble before Elena Whitford could stop herself. Every head in the ballroom turned, every whisper died. And there, through the crowd of silk and diamonds, stood Duke Victor Ravencrest, the man who'd just called her family decorative parasites, watching her with eyes like winter frost. Her hand was bleeding. Her reputation was about to follow. But when his mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, Elena realized she'd made a catastrophic miscalculation. He wasn't angry. He was interested. 3 words would seal her fate before midnight. Marry me instead. If you want to see how a desperate choice becomes a dangerous game of power, secrets, and survival, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. I want to see how far this story travels. The Whitford carriage hadn't been polished in weeks. Elena noticed because tonight, of all nights, every detail mattered. The springs creaked as they rattled through Mayfair's cobbled streets, past townhouses that glowed like lanterns, each one a reminder of what her family used to be. What they'd lost, what she was about to gamble everything to reclaim. Stop fidgeting. Her mother's voice cut through the darkness, sharp as broken glass. Elena's hand stilled in her lap, but her pulse didn't. The emerald dress, last season's style, let out twice and still tight across the shoulders, suddenly felt like a costume, like armor made of lies. The Ashford Ball is our last opportunity, her mother continued, not looking at her. Lady Catherine Whitford kept her gaze fixed on the window, as if the passing streets held answers. Lord Pembroke will be there, widowed, wealthy, and mercifully desperate for heirs. You will dance with him, you will charm him, you will secure his proposal before the season ends. Pembroke's 63, Elena said quietly, and you're 22 with a bankrupt estate and 2 younger sisters who need dowries. Her mother's reflection in the glass was stone. Your preferences are a luxury we can no longer afford. The carriage jolted over a pothole. Elena's chest tightened, the boning of her corset digging into ribs that had grown sharper over the past year, since her father's death, since the creditors had circled like vultures, since every letter that arrived bore threats instead of invitations. What about Catherine and Jane? Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. Their futures depend on yours. Finally, her mother turned. In the dim light from the street lamps, Lady Catherine's face looked older than Elena remembered. Tired. Afraid, though she'd never admit it. You are the eldest. This is your duty. Duty. The word tasted like ash, but Elena nodded, because what else could she do? Watch her 14-year-old sister Catherine sold to some merchant desperate for a title? See Jane, barely 12, pulled from the music lessons that made her eyes light up like candles? The Ashford mansion rose before them, a palace of white stone and arrogance. Light spilled from every window. Music drifted into the street, violins and laughter and the crystalline cling of champagne flutes, the sound of people who'd never wondered if they could afford tomorrow. Elena stepped down from the carriage, her slippers touching ground that felt like a battlefield. Smile, her mother hissed. And for heaven's sake, straighten your spine. The entrance hall was a riot of marble and gilt, chandeliers dripping light like honey. Women in gowns worth more than the Whitford estate moved through the crowd like swans, their jewelry catching fire in the candlelight. Men in immaculate tailcoats clustered near the champagne, their laughter too loud, too confident. Elena felt every eye that slid over her dress, cataloging its age, its alterations. Felt the whispers follow in her wake like a cold draft. The Whitford girl, shame about the father. Gambling debts, I heard. Thousands. Mothers trying to pawn her off on Pembroke, desperate. Her cheeks burned, but she kept her chin high, kept walking. Her mother's hand was an iron manacle on her elbow, steering her through the crowd with surgical precision. There. Lady Catherine nodded toward a corner where Lord Pembroke stood, his considerable belly straining against his waistcoat. Go, be delightful. Elena's stomach turned. But she went. Pembroke's face lit up when he saw her. Not with desire, she noted with dim relief, but with something worse. Calculation. He knew exactly how desperate she was, knew he held all the cards. Miss Whitford. He took her hand, his palm damp. What a vision you are this evening. Lord Pembroke. She forced a smile that felt like it might crack her face. How kind of you to say. I was just telling Lord Ashford about my new hunter. Magnificent creature, 16 hands, bloodline going back to... A commotion near the entrance cut him off. The crowd's murmur shifted, gaining a new texture. Not excitement, something sharper. Fear, maybe. Or fascination. Elena turned. The man who'd just entered didn't walk so much as command space to rearrange itself around him. Tall, dark-haired, dressed in black that made every other man's tailcoat look somehow shabby. But it wasn't his clothes that silenced the room. It was the way he moved, like a predator who knew exactly how much blood was in every body present. Ravencrest, Pembroke breathed beside her. His damp hand tightened on hers. What in blazes is he doing here? Elena knew the name. Everyone did. Duke Victor Ravencrest, the youngest duke in England, owner of estates that sprawled across 3 counties. Ruthless in business, merciless in reputation. The man who'd destroyed Lord Hartley last year over a disagreement about mining rights, leaving him broken and bankrupt. The man society feared too much to cut, but not enough to embrace. He swept the room with eyes the color of steel in winter, and Elena felt the weight of that gaze like a physical thing when it landed on her. For exactly 3 seconds, the Duke of Ravencrest looked at her. Then his attention moved on, dismissive as swatting a fly. Something hot and furious kindled in Elena's chest. Absolutely unsuitable for polite society, Pembroke was saying, his voice pitching higher. The man's a barbarian. I heard he personally threw Lord Hartley's son down the steps of his club. Broke the boy's arm. Did he deserve it? The words left Elena's mouth before she could stop them. Pembroke blinked. I beg your pardon? The Hartley boy. Did he deserve a broken arm? That's hardly the point, my dear. There are civilized ways to handle disputes. Ravencrest is a brute dressed in expensive cloth. No breeding. His grandfather was a shipbuilder, you know. Trade. He said it like a curse. The title came through his mother's line, but blood will tell. The man's fundamentally unsuitable. Elena watched Ravencrest move through the crowd, which parted before him like the Red Sea. No one met his eyes. No one spoke to him directly. He was isolation in human form, and he seemed to prefer it that way. Unsuitable, Elena repeated softly, unlike a 63-year-old widower pursuing a woman young enough to be his granddaughter. That, I suppose, is perfectly civilized. Pembroke's face went purple. Miss Whitford, I hardly think... Excuse me, she pulled her hand free, her heart hammering. I need some air. She fled before her mother could intercept, pushing through the crowd toward the terrace doors. Behind her, she heard Pembroke's sputtering outrage, her mother's mortified apologies. But Elena couldn't stop, couldn't breathe. The ballroom was suffocating her with its perfume and judgment, and the weight of a future she didn't want but couldn't escape. The terrace was blessedly empty, cold October air hitting her face like salvation. She gripped the stone balustrade, dragging air into lungs that felt too small. That was spectacularly stupid. Elena spun. Duke Ravencrest stood in the terrace doorway, a glass of champagne in one hand. Up close, he was even more unsettling, all sharp angles and controlled violence. His face could have been carved from granite, except for his mouth, which held the ghost of something that might have been amusement in a different man. I didn't ask for commentary, Elena said, hating how her voice shook. No, you asked Lord Pembroke if his potential victim deserved violence. In a ballroom full of people who consider you a fortune-hunting parasite. He took a sip of champagne, watching her over the rim. Brave. Idiotic. But brave. Heat flooded her face. You were eavesdropping. I was standing 3 feet away. You weren't quiet. He moved closer, and Elena fought the urge to step back. The Hartley boy didn't deserve a broken arm. He deserved far worse. He'd been raping his family's maids for 2 years. The law wouldn't touch him because his father paid the right people. So I broke his arm in a place where everyone could see it happen. Made sure he understood what would happen to the rest of him if he touched another woman without consent. His eyes never left hers. Does that satisfy your curiosity, Miss Whitford? Elena's mouth went dry. I wasn't... You were defending me to a man you're trying to marry for money. Why? I wasn't defending you. I was questioning his hypocrisy. Ah. Something shifted in Ravencrest's expression. Not a smile. Something more dangerous. And how is that working out? Your campaign to wed Pembroke? None of your business. It became my business when you insulted him on my behalf. He'll tell everyone, you know. By tomorrow, your reputation will be unsalvageable. Your mother will likely murder you, and Pembroke will withdraw his interest entirely. He paused, though perhaps that was your goal. My goal, Elena said, her voice sharp as glass, is to save my family from destitution. Since you seem to enjoy collecting information about strangers, you probably know my father left us drowning in debt. My sisters need futures. My mother needs security, and I need to provide it, even if that means marrying a man I despise. So forgive me if I'm not performing desperation to your satisfaction, Your Grace." She was shaking now, with fury or fear or the horrible realization that she'd just destroyed everything. Ravencrest watched her with those cold, calculating eyes, and Elena wanted to scream, to break something, to run back inside and grovel at Pembroke's feet if it would undo the last 5 minutes. "Marry me instead!" The words landed like stones in still water. Elena stared. "What?" "You need money and status. I need a wife to stop society's matrons from throwing their daughters at me like sacrificial offerings. We could come to an arrangement. This is a joke." "I don't make jokes, Miss Whitford. I'm offering you a business transaction. Marriage in exchange for your family's debts cleared, your sister's dowries secured, and your mother comfortably settled. In return, you play the role of Duchess, manage my household, and appear at my side when required. Nothing more." Elena's heart was trying to hammer its way out of her chest. "You don't even know me!" "I know you're desperate enough to consider Pembroke, intelligent enough to question assumptions, and brave enough, or foolish enough, to speak your mind in a room full of people who'd love to watch you fall." His gaze was surgical. "I also know you're running out of options. Your mother has 3 months before the creditors seize your estate. Pembroke might have proposed eventually, but after tonight?" He shook his head. "You just eliminated your best prospect. Because of you." The accusation came out strangled. "No, because you couldn't help defending someone you thought was being slandered, even when it cost you everything." For the first time, something almost like respect flickered across his face. "That kind of integrity is rare. I could use it." "Use it for what?" But Ravencrest was already moving back toward the ballroom. At the doorway, he paused. "You have until midnight to decide. After that, the offer expires. I'll be in Lord Ashford's study, 3rd door on the left, 2nd floor." Then he was gone, leaving Elena alone on the terrace with a choice that felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Inside, the orchestra had started a waltz. Through the glass, she could see her mother's face, pale, tight, scanning the crowd, looking for her, looking for salvageable futures in the wreckage of Elena's outburst. Catherine and Jane. Their faces swam in Elena's mind. Catherine with her quick laugh and quicker tongue, who wanted to read books and argue philosophy. Jane with her piano compositions, fingers flying over keys like birds in flight. Both of them depending on Elena to be perfect, to sacrifice, to save them. Pembroke was a known quantity, dull, old, but manageable, safe. Ravencrest was a stranger who broke arms in public and spoke of marriage like a business merger, who looked at her like she was a puzzle piece he needed to complete some larger design she couldn't see. Safe versus unknown. Slow death versus quick gamble. The clock in the hall began to chime. 11 o'clock. Elena's hands were still shaking when she walked back inside. The 2nd floor hallway was empty, thick carpet muffling her footsteps. 3 doors on the left. Elena counted them twice before stopping at the 3rd. Behind the heavy oak, she could hear nothing. No movement, no conversation. Maybe he wasn't there. Maybe this was all some cruel game, and she was the punchline. She knocked anyway. "Come in." Ravencrest stood by the window, silhouetted against the night. He'd removed his gloves, and something about the sight of his bare hands made the situation feel suddenly, dangerously real. "Miss Whitford." He didn't turn around. "I wasn't certain you'd come." "I'm not certain I should have." But she closed the door behind her anyway. "This is insane." Most worthwhile things are. Now he did turn, and in the study's lamplight, his features looked less harsh. Still predatory, but human. Tired, maybe. "Have you made a decision?" "I have questions first." "Of course you do." He gestured to a leather chair. Elena sat, grateful her legs had carried her this far without betraying her. Ravencrest leaned against the desk, arms crossed, waiting. "Why?" Elena asked. "Why me? You could have anyone." "Could I?" His smile was knife-thin. "I'm a brute dressed in expensive cloth, remember? A shipbuilder's grandson playing at nobility. Every family in England would sell me their daughter for my title and money,
and every one of those daughters would spend our marriage trying to civilize me into something I'm not. You, at least, seem to have no such illusions. You don't know what illusions I have. Then tell me, what do you imagine marriage would be like, Miss Whitford?
The question caught her off guard. Elena thought of her parents, her father's gambling, her mother's cold silences, the way they'd occupied the same house like ghosts haunting different rooms. Honest, she said finally. I imagine it would be honest.
Something flickered in Ravencrest's eyes. Then we're in agreement. I'll be honest with you now. I don't want love. I don't want romance. I don't want a wife who will expect me to transform into some gentle poet because we share a name. I want a partner who can hold her own. Someone strong enough not to break under scrutiny. Someone smart enough to understand that my reputation, while deserved in some aspects, serves a purpose beyond simple cruelty. What purpose? That, he said slowly, I would explain after you accept. Not before. You're asking me to marry a stranger based on promises and secrets. I'm asking you to choose between certain misery with Pembroke and calculated risk with me. Yes, I'm a stranger, but I'm an honest one. I will clear your debts, I will secure your family, and I will never lie to you about who I am or what I expect. Elena's hands were knotted in her lap, nails digging into palms. What do you expect? Competence? Discretion? The appearance of a united front in public? The reality of separate lives in private? He paused. I have estates that need proper management. A household that's been run by my steward for years because I have neither time nor interest in domestic affairs. I need someone who can handle that, someone I can trust not to sell information to my enemies or collapse under pressure when society comes circling. That's it? I manage your house and smile at parties? In exchange for your family's complete financial security, yes. Is that insufficient? It should have been. It should have felt like selling herself cheap. But Elena thought of Catherine's desperate hope every time a letter arrived, of Jane's hands stilled over piano keys they couldn't afford to keep, of her mother's sleepless nights visible in the shadows under her eyes. How long do I have to decide? Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Ravencrest pulled out a pocket watch. 20 minutes. That's absurd. That's honest. I won't drag this out, Miss Whitford. Either you're brave enough to take the risk, or you're not. Either way, I need to know tonight. Elena stood abruptly, her skirts rustling like defensive armor. She paced to the window, staring down at the garden where carriages lined the circular drive. Somewhere in that ballroom, her mother was probably fabricating excuses for her absence. Pembroke was probably telling everyone who'd listen about the Whitford girl's appalling manners. Her whole life, Elena had done what was expected, been dutiful, been good, been the daughter her parents needed, even when they didn't deserve it. And where had it gotten her? Here. Choosing between two different kinds of cages. But at least with Ravencrest, she'd have space to breathe, room to move, the promise of honesty, even if it came wrapped in danger. I want it in writing, she said, not turning around. Every promise, every term, witnessed and legally binding. Behind her, she heard paper rustle. Already prepared. I had my solicitor draw up a contract before I came tonight. That should have terrified her, the premeditation, the assumption. Instead, it felt oddly reassuring. At least he'd thought this through. At least it wasn't impulse. Elena turned. Ravencrest held out a sheaf of papers, his expression unreadable. She took them, started reading. The terms were exactly as he'd stated. Debts cleared within 1 week of marriage. Dowries of £5,000 each for Catherine and Jane. An annual allowance for her mother. Separate bedchambers. Separate lives except for public appearances. No expectation of heirs unless mutually agreed. It was a business contract. Cold. Precise. Exactly what he'd promised. The pen is there, Ravencrest said quietly, pointing to the desk. Elena looked at the contract, at his face, at the clock showing 15 minutes until midnight. She thought of Pembroke's damp hands, of Catherine's hope, of Jane's music, of all the ways this could destroy her, and the one way it might save them all. If I do this, Elena said, if I sign this and marry you, I want your word that you'll never lie to me, about anything, even if the truth is ugly. You have it. And I want to know why. The real reason you need a wife. Not the story about marriage-minded mothers. The truth. Ravencrest was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm about to become very dangerous to know. The things I do, the risks I take, they're going to get worse before they get better. I need someone who can weather that storm without breaking.
Someone who won't be shocked by what she discovers. Someone strong enough to stand beside me when the wolves come circling. His eyes were winter frost. I think you might be that person, Miss Whitford, but I could be wrong. You could be, Elena agreed. Her hand was surprisingly steady when she picked up the pen. I suppose we'll both find out. She signed her name in ink that looked black as blood. When she set down the pen, Ravencrest's expression shifted into something that might have been relief, or satisfaction, or both. We'll wed in 3 days, he said. I'll handle the license and arrangements. Your family will be informed tomorrow. My mother is going to have an apoplexy. Then it's fortunate I employ an excellent physician. He gathered the papers, his fingers careful not to touch hers. Go back to the ball, Miss Whitford. Dance, smile. Let them think tonight was an aberration. In 3 days you'll be a duchess, and none of them will ever dare whisper about you again. Elena walked to the door on legs that felt like water. Her hand was on the handle when his voice stopped her. Elena. It was the first time he'd used her given name. She turned. You made the right choice, Ravencrest said. I'll make certain of it. It wasn't a promise. It was a vow. And standing there in Lord Ashford's study, with the sound of waltzing couples drifting through the walls and her future signed away in ink, Elena believed him. She returned to the ballroom just as the orchestra struck up a quadrille. Her mother materialized instantly, fury and fear warring on her face. Where have you been? Pembroke is furious. Half the room is talking, and I'm engaged, Elena said quietly. Lady Catherine's mouth opened, closed. To Pembroke? How did you... When did... Not to Pembroke. Elena met her mother's eyes. To Duke Ravencrest. We're marrying in 3 days. He'll call on us tomorrow with the details. Her mother went white, then red, then white again. You've lost your mind. Possibly. Elena's voice was calm, even as her heart tried to beat its way through her ribs. But the debts will be cleared. Catherine and Jane will have dowries. You'll have security. That was the goal, wasn't it? Not like this. Not with him. Elena, the man is dangerous. So is starvation. The sharpness in Elena's voice surprised them both. I've made my choice, Mother. It's done. Around them, the ball continued. Women in silk, men in tailcoats, champagne flowing like water. The orchestra played on, oblivious to the fact that Elena Whitford's entire life had just shifted on its axis. In 3 days, she'd be a duchess. In 3 days, she'd step into a world she didn't understand, married to a man who broke arms and kept secrets. In 3 days, everything would change. Elena lifted her chin and walked back into the crowd, her emerald dress catching the light like armor. Behind her, she could feel eyes watching, whispers starting, the machine of society gossip grinding to life. Let them talk. She was done being afraid. The wedding was a cold affair, executed with the precision of a military operation. No flowers, no music, no guests beyond the required witnesses. Just Elena in a cream silk dress that Victor's staff had delivered the night before, standing in a registry office that smelled of dust and old paper, repeating words that bound her to a man whose hand she'd touched exactly twice. When the magistrate pronounced them married, Victor didn't kiss her. He simply nodded, signed the register with swift, efficient strokes, and said, "The carriage is waiting." Elena's mother hadn't come. Catherine had cried. Jane hadn't spoken a word all morning, just stared at Elena like she was watching someone drown. Now, as the carriage rolled north out of London, Elena watched the city dissolve into countryside and wondered if she'd just made the worst mistake of her life. Victor sat across from her, reading correspondence like she wasn't there. Every few minutes, he'd make a notation in the margin, his handwriting sharp and slanted. He hadn't spoken since they'd left the registry office 2 hours ago. "Where are we going?" Elena finally asked, because the silence was worse than conversation. "Ravencrest Hall, my primary estate. Yorkshire." He didn't look up from his papers. "How far?" 6 hours by carriage. We'll stop twice to change horses." Another silence. Elena counted the trees passing by the window, tried not to think about what awaited her at journey's end. "You're angry," Victor said abruptly. Elena's gaze snapped to him. He was watching her now, the papers lowered. "I'm not angry. You've been silent since we left London. That suggests anger or regret, possibly both." "I'm processing," Elena said carefully. "There's a difference." "Processing what?" "The fact that I married a stranger this morning, and I'm now traveling to a place I've never seen to begin a life I don't understand. Forgive me if I need a moment." Victor set down his papers entirely. You want to understand? Ask me questions. Will you answer them honestly? I gave you my word. I don't break it. Elena studied his face, looking for cracks in the granite. Fine. What happens when we arrive? You'll be shown to your chambers. The housekeeper, Mrs. Hartley, will familiarize you with the household. Tomorrow, you'll meet with the steward to review the estate accounts and current operations. You'll have full authority over domestic management. I'll handle business and external affairs. He paused. We'll dine together when I'm in residence. Separate lives otherwise, as agreed. And the secrets you mentioned? The reason you're dangerous to know? Victor's jaw tightened. Not yet. You need to see the house first. Understand the layout. Meet the staff. Some things require context. That's not an answer. It's the answer you're getting today. His voice wasn't harsh, just inflexible. Patience, Elena. You'll have your explanation soon enough. The carriage hit a rut, throwing her against the seat. Victor's hand shot out, steadying her automatically before withdrawing just as fast. The brief contact felt electric, dangerous. Thank you, Elena said quietly. He nodded and returned to his papers, the conversation apparently over. They stopped at a coaching inn as dusk fell. Victor ordered dinner in a private room, roast chicken, bread, wine that Elena barely touched. He ate quickly, mechanically, like it was another task to complete. When she pushed food around her plate without eating, he noticed, You should eat. It's going to be a long night. I'm not hungry. Nerves? Wouldn't you be? The words came out sharper than intended. I just married a man who won't tell me what I'm walking into. Who treats conversation like an interrogation? Who kept his promises, Victor interrupted. Your family's debts were cleared this morning. The bank received payment in full. Your sister's dowries are established in trust. Your mother has a house in Bath and an annual income of £800. He set down his fork with precise control. I've upheld my end of our bargain, Elena. You're safe. Your family is safe. Everything else is adjustment. Adjustment, Elena repeated. Is that what you call this? What would you call it? A gamble. A leap off a cliff. A choice I made because all the alternatives were worse. She met his eyes. I don't regret signing that contract, but don't mistake acceptance for comfort. I'm terrified, Victor. And you sitting there like a stone wall doesn't help. Something shifted in his expression. Not softening exactly, more like recognition. You want me to be warmer, more reassuring. I want you to be human. I'm not good at human. The admission seemed to cost him. I'm good at strategy, at solving problems, at building systems that work. People find that cold. They're probably right. He pushed his plate away. I can't be what you need me to be, Elena. Not in the way you're hoping, but I can be reliable, consistent, present when you need me. If that's enough, we'll manage. If it's not, it'll have to be, Elena said. We're already married. Yes, we are. Victor stood, offering his hand. The carriage is ready. We should go. Elena took his hand, letting him help her up. His grip was firm, impersonal. The touch of a business partner, not a husband. She wondered if that would ever change, then decided it was better if it didn't. Caring made people vulnerable, and she couldn't afford vulnerability anymore. The house appeared near midnight, rising from the darkness like something from a Gothic novel. Ravencrest Hall wasn't beautiful. It was a fortress, all stone walls and narrow windows, built to withstand siege rather than impress visitors. Torches flanked the entrance, casting shadows that made the building look alive. Hungry. Welcome home, Victor said, and there might have been irony in his voice. Hard to tell. The staff was assembled in the entrance hall, a line of servants in crisp uniforms, their faces carefully neutral. An older woman stepped forward, her gray hair pulled back severely, her eyes sharp as cut glass. Your Grace? Your Grace, she curtsied to Victor, then Elena. I'm Mrs. Hartley, the housekeeper. We've prepared the Duchess's chambers as instructed. Thank you, Mrs. Hartley. Victor's voice shifted into something almost warm. Almost. Please show my wife to her rooms. Make sure she has everything she needs. Of course, Your Grace, Victor turned to Elena. Get some rest. We'll talk tomorrow. Then he was gone, striding down a corridor that swallowed him whole. Elena stared after him, feeling suddenly, completely alone. This way, Your Grace. Mrs. Hartley's voice was crisp, but not unkind. I'll give you the full tour tomorrow, but for tonight, let's get you settled. Elena followed her up a grand staircase, down hallways lined with portraits of stern-faced ancestors. past rooms whose doors were closed and locked. The house felt enormous, empty, like something vital had been hollowed out and never replaced. Here we are. Mrs. Hartley opened a door, revealing a suite that was surprisingly beautiful. Cream walls, elegant furniture, a fire already burning in the grate. Your bedchamber, sitting room, and dressing room are through there. His Grace's chambers are in the east wing, completely separate as you requested. As I requested? Elena hadn't requested anything, as was specified in your marriage agreement. Mrs. Hartley's expression gave nothing away. Ring if you need anything. Breakfast is at 8, but I can have a tray sent up if you'd prefer. Thank you, Mrs. Hartley. The housekeeper curtsied and left. Elena stood in the center of her new room, listening to the silence press in from all sides. This was her life now. This fortress. This stranger for a husband. This vast empty space that felt nothing like home. She undressed herself. No maid had appeared, and she was too proud to ring, and climbed into bed wearing her chemise. The sheets were cold. The room was cold. Everything was cold except the fire, which threw dancing shadows across walls that seemed to watch her. Elena closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Failed. Lay awake counting hours until dawn, wondering what tomorrow would bring. Breakfast arrived at 7:30. Coffee, bread, eggs prepared perfectly. Elena ate alone in her sitting room, staring out windows that overlooked gardens turned skeletal by autumn. At 8:15, Mrs. Hartley appeared. His Grace requests your presence in his study when you're ready, Your Grace. I'm ready now. Mrs. Hartley led her through corridors Elena knew she'd never remember, down 2 staircases, past a library that could have held 10,000 books. The study door was ajar. Mrs. Hartley knocked once, then withdrew. Come in, Victor called. He was at his desk, surrounded by papers, maps, ledgers. He looked like he'd been there all night, shirt sleeves rolled up, hair disheveled, exhaustion etched into the lines of his face, but his eyes were alert when they met hers. You didn't sleep, Elena said. I rarely do. Coffee? He gestured to a pot on the side table. Please. Elena poured herself a cup, grateful for something to do with her hands. You wanted to see me? I wanted to keep my promise, about explanations. Victor stood, moving to a large map pinned to the wall. Europe, Elena realized, with marks scattered across it in red ink. Look at this and tell me what you see. Elena studied the map. The marks clustered in certain areas. Eastern France, Belgium, parts of Germany, and Austria. Migration routes? Escape routes. Victor tapped one cluster. These are families fleeing persecution, Jewish families mostly, but also political dissidents, religious minorities, anyone targeted by the regime's consolidating power across Europe. The pogroms are getting worse. The violence is escalating, and very few people with power are willing to help. Elena's stomach tightened. Why are you showing me this? Because this is what I do, what I've been doing for 3 years. I move people, provide false papers, safe houses, passage to England or America. I use my estates, my ships, my money to get families out before they're destroyed. He turned to face her. And I use my reputation as a ruthless bastard to keep anyone from looking too closely at what I'm actually doing. The room seemed to tilt. Elena gripped the edge of the desk. You're running a rescue operation. A network with operatives in 6 countries, safe houses in 12 cities, and enough bribes paid to keep officials looking the other way. It's dangerous. It's illegal in most jurisdictions. And if the wrong people discover what I'm doing, everyone involved dies. Including you, now that you're my wife. You married me to, what? Give yourself cover? I married you because I needed someone strong enough to handle the truth without collapsing. Someone smart enough to help run this operation. Someone who couldn't be easily broken or bought. His voice was utterly calm. In 3 days, we're moving a family of 8 out of Vienna. They're hiding in a warehouse near the docks. I need to coordinate transport, forge documents, and make sure they reach the ship without being caught. While I'm doing that, you're going to learn how this household actually works. Because it's not a household, Elena, it's headquarters. Elena's mind was racing. The staff, they know? The core staff, yes. Mrs. Hartley coordinates communications. My steward manages finances and logistics. The head groom handles transportation. Everyone else is kept in the dark for their own protection. He pulled out a chair. Sit. Please. This is going to take a while. Elena sat because her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. Why tell me now? Why not wait? Because in 2 hours, a coded message is arriving from Munich. It'll contain information about a family that needs extraction. And I need to know if you're going to help or if I need to find a way to keep you isolated from this entire operation. I'd prefer the former. The latter would make our marriage significantly more complicated. You're asking me to commit treason. I'm asking you to save lives. Victor's eyes were steel. These are children, Elena. Mothers, fathers, grandparents. People whose only crime was being born into the wrong family in the wrong place at the wrong time. I can't save all of them, but I can save some. And I need help to do it. Elena's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs. If we're caught, we won't be caught. I'm too careful, too connected. I've been doing this too long without making mistakes. He paused. But yes, if something goes catastrophically wrong, we'll both hang. That's the risk. I won't lie about it. You're insane. Probably. Something that might have been a smile ghosted across his face. But I'm also right. You know I'm right. You knew the world was burning and chose to question Pembroke's hypocrisy anyway. That tells me you have a conscience. I'm just asking you to use it. Elena stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Outside, gardeners were pruning hedges, their movements slow and methodical. Normal. While inside this study, her husband was calmly explaining that he was running an underground railroad for refugees and expected her to join him. What would I do? She asked finally. Specifically, manage the safe houses here in England, coordinate with our contacts when families arrive, help forge documents. You have excellent handwriting, I noticed. Keep the household running so no one suspects what we're really doing. Victor moved to stand beside her, not touching, but close enough she could feel the heat of him. And when necessary, play the part of the Duke and Duchess of Ravencrest. Attend balls, host dinners, smile and charm, and make everyone believe we're exactly what we appear to be. Which is what? A cold, ambitious marriage between a ruthless duke and a desperate fortune hunter. Let them think I married you for your beauty and you married me for my money. Let them gossip. As long as they're not looking too closely at where my ships are going or who's living in my properties, I don't care what they say. Elena turned to face him. You've thought this through. I think everything's through. His voice softened slightly. I know what I'm asking, Elena. I know it's more than you agreed to. If you want out, tell me now. I'll arrange a separation. You'll keep the money, your family stays protected, and you never have to see me again. But if you stay, if you choose to help, I need your absolute commitment. No hesitation, no second guessing. Lives depend on it. Lives depend. Elena's mind flashed to Catherine and Jane, safe now because of Victor's money. To her mother, settled in Bath, finally free from fear. To all the families scattered across that map, running for their lives while the world looked away. She thought of Pembroke calling Victor unsuitable, of society's comfortable lies, of how easy it was to be good when it cost you nothing. The message from Munich, she said slowly. When does it arrive? 90 minutes. Then you better teach me how to decode it. Victor's expression shifted into something Elena had never seen before. Relief. Gratitude. Respect. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She met his eyes. You kept your promises. I'll keep mine. You needed a partner. You have one. For a long moment, Victor just looked at her. Then he held out his hand. Welcome to the operation, Duchess. Elena took his hand. His grip was warm this time, solid. The handshake of equals stepping into battle together. First lesson, Victor said, moving back to his desk. The codes we use are based on book ciphers. Every message references a specific edition, page, and word sequence. We maintain identical libraries in every safe house. If someone intercepts a message, it looks like gibberish without the correct text. He pulled out a leather-bound volume. Don Quixote, Elena noted. This is our primary key for German communications. Watch. For the next hour, Victor taught her the basics. How to read the numeric sequences. How to translate them into words. How to verify authenticity using date stamps and signature phrases. Elena absorbed it like drowning person taking in air, her mind sharp and focused despite the fear churning in her gut. You're good at this, Victor said, surprise evident in his voice. I'm good at patterns, languages. My father thought it was useless for a woman. Turns out he was wrong about a lot of things. A knock at the door interrupted them. Mrs. Hartley entered, carrying a sealed envelope. The Morning Post, Your Grace. Thank you. Victor took the envelope, waiting until Mrs. Hartley left before breaking the seal. He scanned the contents, his expression hardening. It's worse than I thought. What is? The Munich family. They have 3 days before the raids start. That's not enough time to get them out through normal channels. He spread the decoded message on the desk. 6 people, including an infant. They're hiding in a textile factory basement, but the owner is getting nervous. If he turns them in, then we move them faster, Elena said. What's the fastest route? Train to Switzerland, then to France, then ship to Dover. But the border crossings are heavily monitored now. They'll need perfect papers and a cover story that holds up under interrogation. What if they don't cross as refugees? Elena's mind was working fast, pieces clicking together. What if they cross as employees? Your employees? Victor's eyes sharpened. Explain.
You own textile factories, don't you? The family is hiding in one. What if they're being transferred to one of your English facilities? Workers, not refugees. With employment contracts, travel permits, everything official and boring. Who questions a duke moving his own staff? The father is a university professor. He doesn't know anything about textiles. So he's the new factory manager, being trained in advanced techniques. The mother and eldest daughter are quality inspectors. The younger children are dependents on the employment roster. Elena was pacing now, ideas flowing. It's not suspicious, it's business. And if anyone asks why you're bringing them over, you say English workers are unionizing and you need loyal foreign labor who will work for less. Victor stared at her. That's brilliant. That's practical. Can it work? If we move fast. I'd need to contact our forger in Vienna, get the documents prepared within 48 hours, bribe the right border guards. He was already writing, his hand flying across paper. We'd need someone to escort them, someone who speaks German and can maintain the cover story under pressure. I speak German, Elena said. Victor's hand stopped. Absolutely not. Why not? You said you needed help. I'm helping.
I said manage safe houses here, not travel to Austria and escort refugees across 3 countries while dodging soldiers and secret police. His voice was sharp. It's too dangerous. You're not trained. You don't know the routes. You'd be a liability. Then train me. You have 3 days. That's enough time to teach me what I need to know. Elena, don't. She cut him off, her voice hard. Don't tell me I can't do this because I'm a woman, or I'm untrained, or it's too risky. You married me because I was strong enough to handle the truth. Prove you meant it. Victor stood, his full height suddenly imposing. If something goes wrong, I can't protect you. If you're caught, I can't save you. You'd be arrested, imprisoned, possibly executed. Do you understand that? Do you think I'm stupid? Of course I understand. Elena moved closer, refusing to back down. But right now, you need someone who can play the part of a duchess, inspecting her husband's foreign holdings. Someone who can speak the language and won't panic under scrutiny. You need me, Victor. Admit it. The silence stretched taut between them. Elena could see the calculations running behind Victor's eyes, weighing risk against necessity, protection against practicality. You'd have to follow my instructions exactly, he said finally. No improvisation, no heroics. If I say run, you run. If I say lie, you lie. Understood? Understood. And if I decide at any point that it's too dangerous, we abort and find another way. Agreed. Victor exhaled slowly. You're absolutely certain about this. Are you going to ask me that every time I make a decision? Because it's going to get old fast. Despite everything, Victor's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Fair point. All right, we leave for Vienna tomorrow night. That gives us 36 hours to prepare. Can you be ready? Can you? I've been ready for 3 years. He gathered the papers, his movements crisp and controlled again. We'll need to create a cover story for why the Duchess of Ravencrest is suddenly traveling to Austria. Society will talk. Let them talk. We're newlyweds inspecting your holdings abroad. It's romantic. Elena's voice dripped sarcasm. Besides, you said you didn't care what they say as long as they're not looking at your ships. True. Victor moved to the door. I need to send coded messages to Vienna and arrange transport. You should rest. Starting tomorrow, you won't have time. Victor. He turned. Thank you, Elena said quietly, for trusting me. Thank me when we all survive this. But his eyes held something new. Partnership. Maybe even the beginning of respect. After he left, Elena sat in the study surrounded by maps and coded messages, and the sudden, stunning realization of what she'd just agreed to do. Travel to Austria, forge documents, smuggle refugees across borders while soldiers searched for people exactly like them. She should be terrified. She was terrified. But underneath the fear was something else: purpose. For the first time since her father died, Elena felt like she was doing something that mattered, something bigger than survival, bigger than duty. She was going to save lives, or die trying. The door opened. Mrs. Hartley appeared, her expression knowing. "Your Grace, if you're going to Vienna, you'll need proper traveling clothes. I've taken the liberty of preparing several options. Shall we?" Elena stood, squaring her shoulders. "Yes, let's." As she followed Mrs. Hartley through the corridors of Ravencrest Hall, Elena caught her reflection in a mirror. The frightened girl who'd signed a contract 3 days ago was gone. In her place stood someone harder, sharper, someone who'd chosen danger over safety and meant to survive it. The Duchess of Ravencrest stared back from the glass, and for the first time, Elena recognized herself. Vienna smelled like coal smoke and fear. Elena noticed it the moment they stepped off the train, a thickness in the air that had nothing to do with weather. People moved too quickly through the station, eyes down, conversations clipped. Soldiers in gray uniforms watched from every corner, their rifles held casual but ready. "Stay close," Victor murmured, his hand at the small of her back. To anyone watching, they were simply a wealthy couple arriving in the city. His touch was proprietary, possessive, the perfect performance. "And remember, you're bored. Rich wives are always bored." Elena adjusted her fur collar, letting her expression settle into practiced indifference. "How tedious. I do hope the hotel has decent champagne." "Better." Victor's voice carried just enough to reach nearby ears. "I booked us a suite at the Imperial. You'll have plenty of champagne while I'm touring the factories." They collected their luggage, expensive leather cases that screamed money, and climbed into a waiting carriage. Only when the door closed and they were moving did Victor's posture shift, the performance dropping away. "The forger is meeting us at 8 tonight. Back entrance of the hotel, through the kitchens. His name is Klaus. Don't use any other name." "And the family?" "Hiding 2 miles from here in a textile factory basement. We'll move them tomorrow night if the documents are ready." Victor pulled out his pocket watch, checking it against the fading daylight. "That gives us 24 hours. Not much margin for error." What could go wrong? The question came out more nervous than Elena intended. Everything. Victor's bluntness was almost reassuring. The forger could be arrested. The border guards could change shifts. The family could panic and run. Someone could recognize me, despite the precautions. The ship could be delayed. He met her eyes. "But we plan for contingencies. That's why we're still alive." The Imperial Hotel rose above them, all marble columns and crystal chandeliers. A doorman in gold braid rushed to help them down. More performance. More lies wrapped in expensive clothes. Their suite was obscenely luxurious, sitting room, bedroom, balcony overlooking the city. Elena walked to the window, staring down at Vienna's streets. Somewhere out there, a family of 6 was hiding in darkness, counting hours until either rescue or discovery. "You're thinking too much," Victor said behind her. "I can see it in your shoulders." "I'm thinking the right amount." 6 people are depending on us not to make mistakes. 6 people are depending on us to stay calm and execute the plan. Anxiety doesn't help them. He shrugged off his coat, rolling his shoulders. "Get some rest. We have 4 hours before Klaus arrives." "I can't sleep." "Then eat, or bathe, or practice looking aristocratic and disdainful. Just don't pace and spiral." His voice wasn't unkind. "I need you sharp tonight, Elena, not exhausted." She wanted to argue, wanted to snap that she wasn't some delicate flower who needed managing, but Victor was right. The gnawing fear in her gut wasn't useful. It was just noise. "Fine. I'll rest." She moved toward the bedroom, pausing at the doorway. "Victor?" "Yes?" "Have you ever lost anyone during an extraction?" His silence was answer enough. "How many?" Elena asked quietly. Enough to know that hesitation kills people faster than bullets. Enough to know that second-guessing gets everyone captured. Enough to trust my planning and move forward anyway. Victor's eyes were hard. "If you're having doubts, I'm not. I'm just trying to understand what we're walking into. We're walking into a situation where perfect execution gives us maybe 60% odds of success, where one wrong word could get us all killed, where luck matters as much as planning." He crossed the room, stopping close enough that Elena had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. Are you ready for that reality? Because once we start, there's no stopping, no turning back, no rescue if things go wrong. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. I'm ready. Then prove it. Get some rest. And when Klaus arrives, be the Duchess who doesn't give a damn about anything except her own comfort. Can you do that? Watch me. She turned and walked into the bedroom, closing the door with more confidence than she felt. Behind it, she let herself shake for exactly 30 seconds. Then she locked it down, stripped off her traveling clothes, and forced herself to lie down. Sleep didn't come, but stillness did. And when the clock struck 7:30, Elena rose, dressed in a simple dark gown, and walked back into the sitting room ready to lie to a forger's face. Victor was waiting, dressed in black. He looked her over critically. Perfect. You look like exactly the kind of woman who wouldn't notice a crime happening 6 feet away. Should I be insulted? You should be prepared. He handed her a small pistol. Do you know how to use this? Elena stared at the weapon. No. Safety here. Point. Pull the trigger. Don't aim for center mass, you'll miss. Aim for the largest part of the target and shoot twice. He waited until she took it, then added, If you're pulling that gun, everything has already gone catastrophically wrong. It's a last resort. Understood? Understood. The pistol was heavier than she'd expected. Cold. She tucked it into the pocket of her skirt, feeling its weight like an accusation. A knock at the door. 3 sharp raps. Pause. 2 more. Victor opened it. The man who entered was thin, middle-aged, with ink-stained fingers and nervous eyes that darted around the room before settling on Victor. Your Grace, you're early. I'm on time. You're late, Klaus. Victor's voice held an edge. The documents? Klaus pulled a leather portfolio from inside his coat, laying it on the table. 6 sets. Employment contracts, travel permits, identification papers, everything backdated 3 months to make it look legitimate. But there's a problem. Elena's stomach dropped. What problem? Klaus's gaze flicked to her, then back to Victor. The border checkpoint at Salzburg changed protocols yesterday. They're checking every document against central registries now, manual verification. That means that means the forgeries won't hold up under scrutiny. Victor's jaw tightened. How long would it take to get the documents into the actual registry? 2 weeks. Maybe 3. I'd need to bribe someone inside the department, create paper trails, backdate entries across multiple systems. We don't have 2 weeks, we have 24 hours. Then you need a different route. Klaus spread his hands helplessly. I'm sorry, Your Grace, but if they run these papers through verification, the family will be arrested on the spot. The forgeries are perfect for visual inspection, but they won't survive a registry check. Victor was already moving to the map spread across the desk, his finger tracing borders. What about the northern route? Through Munich? Same problem. They're coordinating across regions now, ever since the Vienna incident last month. What Vienna incident? Elena asked. Klaus shifted uncomfortably. A family was caught at the station. Someone tipped off the authorities. They made an example. Public arrests, newspapers, the whole spectacle. Now every checkpoint is on high alert. They're looking for exactly what you're trying to do. The room felt like it was shrinking. Elena watched Victor's face, looking for cracks in his composure. Found none. He was thinking, calculating, running scenarios at speed. Then we don't use checkpoints, Victor said finally. We go around them. You mean smuggling routes? Klaus's voice dropped to a whisper. Your Grace, those paths are controlled by criminals. Violent men who'd sell you out for pocket change. And with a family of 6, including an infant, I'm aware of the risks. Victor cut him off. But if the official routes are compromised, we use unofficial ones. Do you have contacts? I have a name. Maximilian Kohler. He runs contraband through the mountains between here and Switzerland, but he's dangerous, unpredictable, and expensive. How expensive? 5,000 pounds, in gold, up front. Victor didn't hesitate. Done. Set up a meeting, tonight if possible. Tonight? Your Grace, these people don't move on your schedule. Then make them move. Victor's voice turned to ice. I didn't come to Vienna to negotiate with middle managers. Get me Kohler, within 2 hours. Or find someone else who can do what he does. Klaus swallowed hard. I'll try, but if he refuses, he won't refuse 5,000 pounds. Victor pulled a case from his luggage, opening it to reveal stacks of gold coins that gleamed in the lamplight.
Tell him the Duke of Ravencrest is buying his services. Tell him there's twice this amount if he gets 6 people to Switzerland safely. And tell him if he betrays me, I'll hunt him across every border in Europe and make him regret being born. The naked threat in Victor's voice made Elena's skin prickle. This was the man society feared, the one who broke arms and destroyed enemies. Seeing it up close was different than hearing rumors. Klaus nodded rapidly. 2 hours, I'll send word to your suite. After he left, silence filled the room like smoke. Elena stood frozen, the pistol heavy in her pocket, watching Victor methodically count out gold coins and replace them in the case. You're going to threaten a smuggler, she said finally. A violent criminal who could kill us and take the money. I'm establishing terms. Kohler respects strength. If I come to him weak or desperate, he'll see an opportunity to exploit. If I come to him strong and dangerous, he'll see a business partner worth keeping alive. Victor locked the case. It's the same principle as my reputation in England. Fear is a tool. I use it. And if it doesn't work, then we find another way. There's always another way. But his voice held a tension that hadn't been there before. This is what I meant about things going wrong, Elena. Plans change. Contingencies activate. We adapt, or we fail. Elena moved to the window, staring out at the city lights. The family doesn't know any of this is happening, do they? They're just sitting in that basement, hoping we'll save them. They know enough. They know the original plan failed. They know we're working on alternatives. Victor joined her at the window. Hope is what keeps people alive in situations like this. Take it away, and they make desperate choices, bad choices. Is that what happened? With the people you lost? Victor's reflection in the glass was stone. Some of them. Others just had bad luck. Wrong place, wrong guard, wrong moment. That's the reality of this work, Elena. You can plan perfectly and still lose. You can do everything right and still watch people die. If you can't accept that, I accept it. Elena turned to face him. I hate it, but I accept it. They stood there in the lamplight, 2 people bound by a marriage of convenience that had become something far more complicated. Partners in a game where the stakes were human lives and the penalties were death. We should eat something, Victor said finally. It's going to be a long night. They ordered room service, picking at food neither of them wanted while they waited for Klaus's message. When it came, a folded note slipped under the door. Victor read it twice before speaking. Kohler will meet us. Midnight, a warehouse near the docks. He looked at Elena. This is your last chance to stay behind. I can handle this alone. No. Elena stood, brushing invisible wrinkles from her skirt. You said you needed me sharp. I'm sharp. Let's go. The warehouse district was a maze of shadows and rust, buildings that sagged under their own weight. Their carriage stopped 3 blocks away. Victor paid the driver extra to wait, then led Elena through streets that smelled of river water and rotting wood. Stay behind me, he murmured. Let me talk. Only speak if directly addressed, and keep your hand near that pistol. They found the warehouse, number 17, half its windows broken. The door was ajar. Victor pushed it open, revealing darkness and the smell of oil. Kohler? His voice echoed in the emptiness. Here. Lamps flared to life, revealing a space larger than it had appeared from outside. And in the center, surrounded by half a dozen armed men, stood Maximilian Kohler. He was younger than Elena expected, maybe 40, with a scar running from temple to jaw and eyes that missed nothing. He looked them over slowly, taking in Victor's expensive clothes, Elena's fur collar, the obvious wealth. The Duke and Duchess of Ravencrest. Kohler's accent was thick, his smile thin. Klaus said you needed my services. Something about moving cargo to Switzerland? 6 people, 2 adults, 4 children, including an infant, from Vienna to Geneva within 3 days, avoiding all official checkpoints. Victor's voice was steady. 5,000 pounds in gold now, another 5,000 when they arrive safely. Kohler's smile widened. 10,000 pounds for 6 refugees. You must want them very badly. I want them alive and free. Can you deliver that or not? I can deliver anything, for the right price. Kohler circled them like a shark, his men's rifles tracking the movement. But I'm curious, Your Grace, why use a smuggler? You're a duke. You have influence, connections, legitimate channels, unless... His eyes sharpened. Unless you can't use legitimate channels. Unless you're doing something illegal, something that would destroy you if discovered. My reasons are my own. Your concern is the money. Victor pulled the case from his coat, setting it on a crate between them. 5,000 pounds. Count it if you'd like. Kohler didn't move toward the case. Who are they? The people you're moving? That's not part of our agreement. It is now. Kohler's voice turned hard. I don't move anyone without knowing who they are and why they're running. Too many times I've smuggled people only to find out they were criminals, spies, worse. So tell me, Your Grace, who are these 6 people worth 10,000 pounds? Elena felt Victor's hesitation, saw the calculation in his eyes. How much to reveal, how much to hide. The wrong answer could end this, could end everything. A university professor and his family, Victor said finally. Targeted for persecution. No crimes except being born the wrong religion. They have 3 days before the roundups start. After that, they're dead or disappeared. That's all you need to know. Kohler studied him for a long moment. Then he spat on the ground. Jews. The word hung in the air like a knife. Does that matter? Victor asked quietly. It matters to the price. Moving Jews is dangerous. The rewards for turning them in are high. My men take risks. Those risks cost money. Kohler crossed his arms. 15,000 total. 7 now, 8 on delivery. That's extortion. That's business. Take it or leave it. Victor's hand moved toward his coat. Instantly, 6 rifles snapped up, pointed at his chest. Elena's heart stopped. Easy. Victor's voice never wavered. I'm reaching for more money. Unless you want to shoot me before I can pay you. Slowly, carefully, he pulled out a second case. Opened it. More gold coins gleamed in the lamplight. 15,000 pounds, Victor said. 7,000 now, 8,000 on delivery. But I want guarantees. I want daily updates on their progress. I want confirmation they've crossed safely. And I want your word that if anything goes wrong, you get them out anyway. No abandoning them at the first sign of trouble. My word? Kohler laughed. You want a smuggler's word? I want a professional's word. You've built a reputation. You wouldn't have survived this long without some kind of code. So give me your word, Kohler, or find someone else to pay you 15,000 pounds for 3 days' work. The warehouse fell silent except for the drip of water somewhere in the darkness. Kohler's men shifted, restless. Elena's hand found the pistol in her pocket, fingers closing around cold metal. Then Kohler grinned. You've got spine, Duke, I'll give you that. He stepped forward, extending his hand. You have my word. I'll move your Jews safely to Geneva, all 6 of them, alive and unharmed. And if anyone tries to stop me, they'll regret it. Victor shook his hand. The deal was sealed. When do we move them? Victor asked. Tomorrow night, 2 a.m. Have them ready at the factory. My men will collect them. 3 days later, they'll be in Switzerland. Kohler pocketed the gold cases without counting. One more thing, Your Grace. If you're running a network, and I think you are, you should know the authorities are getting smarter. They're looking for patterns, routes, safe houses. Eventually they'll find you. Let them look. Pride gets people killed. So does cowardice. Victor turned toward the door. Tomorrow night, 2 a.m. Don't be late. Elena followed him out, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. They walked 3 blocks in silence before Victor finally spoke. You did well, staying quiet, looking bored. I was terrified. Good. Fear keeps you alert. He helped her into the waiting carriage. Now comes the hard part. That wasn't the hard part. That was negotiation. Now we have to tell the family to trust us with their lives. The textile factory was dark except for a single light in the back office. Victor knocked in a pattern. 3 quick, 2 slow, 1 quick. The door opened a crack, revealing a man's frightened face. We're from Klaus, Victor said in perfect German. We're here to help. The door opened wider. They descended stairs into a basement that smelled of machine oil and sweat. And there, huddled on blankets in the corner, was the family. The father stood when he saw them, tall, thin, with a scholar's stoop and hands that shook. The mother held an infant against her chest, her eyes hollow with exhaustion. 3 other children clung to her skirts, the oldest maybe 10. You're the ones Klaus sent? The father asked, his voice barely above a whisper. You're going to save us? Elena felt the weight of that hope like a physical thing. These weren't abstractions on a map. They were real people with real fear etched into every line of their faces. We're going to try, Victor said, but I need you to listen carefully. The situation has changed. The original plan won't work. We've arranged alternate transport, but it's more dangerous. You'll be traveling with a smuggler through mountain routes. It won't be comfortable.
It won't be safe, but it's your best chance. When? The mother asked. Tomorrow night, 2 a.m. You need to be ready. Minimal luggage, warm clothes, whatever you can carry easily. The journey will take 3 days. You'll be moving mostly at night, hiding during the day. Can you manage that with the children? The parents exchanged a look that spoke volumes. Terror, desperation, determination. We can manage, the father said. We don't have a choice. You do have a choice, Elena heard herself say. Everyone turned to look at her. You can stay, hide, hope the raids pass you by. It's not much of a choice, but it exists. You should know what you're agreeing to. And what are we agreeing to? The mother asked. Trusting strangers with your lives, following a criminal through dangerous terrain with small children, risking exposure, arrest, possibly death, all for the chance, not the guarantee, the chance of reaching safety. Elena crouched down to the children's level. It's going to be scary. You're going to be cold and hungry and frightened. But if you're brave, if you stay quiet when we tell you to, if you trust us, we'll do everything we can to get you to England. The oldest child, a girl with her mother's dark eyes, looked at Elena solemnly. Will there be soldiers? Maybe, but we'll hide from them. I'm good at hiding. I know you are. Elena's throat tightened. You're all very brave. We'll go, the father said firmly. Whatever the risks, we'll go. Victor nodded. Tomorrow night, 2 a.m. Have everyone ready. Someone will come for you. Don't speak to them unless absolutely necessary. Don't ask questions. Just follow instructions and move quickly. Understood? Understood. As they climbed back up the stairs, Elena heard the mother singing softly to the infant, a lullaby in a language she didn't recognize. The sound followed them out into the night. Back at the hotel, Elena couldn't stop shaking. She paced the suite while Victor sent coded messages to contacts across Europe, arranging the next stages of the network. When she finally spoke, her voice was raw. Those children, did you see their faces? I saw them. If anything goes wrong, it won't go wrong. But Victor's certainty sounded hollow even to him. You don't know that. Kohler could betray us. The children could cry at the wrong moment. A guard could be more alert than expected. 1,000 things could... Elena. Victor crossed the room, gripping her shoulders. Listen to me. Yes, 1,000 things could go wrong, but we've done everything we can to prevent them. We've hired the best smuggler. We've paid enough to ensure his loyalty. We've planned contingencies. Now we have to trust the plan and execute. And if we fail, then we fail knowing we tried. That's all we can do. His hands tightened. But we're not going to fail, not tomorrow night, not with this family. Do you hear me? Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. Get some sleep. We have one more day to finalize everything. Then we move. She retreated to the bedroom, but sleep was impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the little girl's face asking about soldiers, saw the mother's hollow eyes, saw the infant, blissfully unaware that its life hung by a thread. At dawn, Elena gave up on sleep entirely. She dressed, walked into the sitting room, and found Victor at the desk, surrounded by papers. He looked like he hadn't slept either. I've been thinking about Kohler, Victor said without preamble. About the price increase. He asked too quickly, like he was testing how much we'd pay. What does that mean? It means he knows we're desperate, which means he might be considering whether the reward for turning us in is worth more than £15,000. Victor's jaw tightened. I'm sending someone to watch the warehouse tonight, to make sure Kohler's men actually show up and that they're alone. And if they're not alone, if soldiers come instead, then we get the family out ourselves. There's a second route through the sewers. Unpleasant but functional. We'd have to move them on foot to a different safe house, delay the extraction by a week. A knock at the door cut him off. The pattern was wrong, too urgent. Victor was already moving, his hand going to the pistol at his waist. Stay back. He opened the door to reveal Klaus, wild-eyed and breathing hard. They're coming, Klaus gasped. The factory. There was a raid scheduled for tonight, but they moved it up. They're going now. Right now. You have maybe 20 minutes before... Victor was already grabbing his coat. Elena, stay here. Like hell. She was moving before she could think, grabbing her own coat. If they're raiding the factory, you'll need help getting 6 people out. You can't do it alone. This isn't a negotiation. You're right. It's not. Elena met his eyes. We're wasting time arguing. Let's go. For 1 second, Victor looked like he might lock her in the suite.
Then he swore under his breath and threw open the door. They ran through Vienna's pre-dawn streets, Klaus leading them through alleys and shortcuts. Elena's lungs burned, her skirts tangled around her legs, but she kept pace, fear driving her forward. The textile factory loomed ahead, and in the street outside she could see them, soldiers in gray uniforms surrounding the building, at least 20 men. Maybe more. "We're too late," Klaus whispered, but Victor was staring at the factory's side entrance, calculating. "The basement has a loading door that opens onto the river dock. If we can reach it before they do, they'll see us," Elena said. "The street's full of soldiers. Then we create a distraction." Victor turned to Klaus. "Can you pull the fire alarm at the hotel 3 blocks over?" "What? Why would—" "Just do it, now, and make it loud." Klaus ran. Victor grabbed Elena's hand, pulling her toward the shadows along the river. "When you hear the alarm, we move, fast, straight to that loading door. Once we're inside, we have maybe 5 minutes to get everyone out before the soldiers finish searching the upper floors. 5 minutes to move 6 people, including an infant, through a basement and out onto the docks without being seen. That's impossible. It's all we have." The fire alarm split the night, a clanging bell that echoed off buildings. Soldiers' heads turned. Some started moving toward the sound. "Now," Victor hissed. They ran. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs as they crossed the open ground to the loading door. Victor wrenched it open and they tumbled inside, pulling it shut behind them. The basement was chaos. The family huddled in the corner, the father trying to keep the children quiet while the mother clutched the infant. Upstairs, boots thundered across floorboards. Voices shouted in German. "We're leaving! Now!" Victor's voice was barely a whisper. "Single file. No talking. Move only when I signal. Understood?" The father nodded, gathering the children. "Elena, take the rear. If anyone falls behind, you get them moving. No one gets left behind." "What about the soldiers upstairs?" "They're searching the offices first. That gives us maybe 3 minutes before they reach the basement stairs." Victor moved to the river door, listening. "When I open this, we head straight for the docks. There's a boat moored 50 feet downstream. If we can reach it." The basement door exploded open. Soldiers poured down the stairs, rifles raised. Someone shouted. The infant started crying. Victor's hand found Elena's. "Run!" He kicked open the river door and they ran, all 8 of them, stumbling into cold morning air. Behind them, soldiers shouted. A rifle cracked, the bullet hitting brick near Elena's head. The boat was there, exactly where Victor said. A small fishing vessel, low and dark. Victor threw the father aboard first, then started passing children. The mother. The infant still wailing. More shots. Elena felt one pass so close it stirred her hair. "Get in!" Victor shouted at her, but Elena was staring back at the factory, at the soldiers pouring out the loading door, at the impossible distance between them and safety. "Victor, they're going to—" He shoved her into the boat so hard she nearly fell overboard. Then he was cutting the mooring line, the boat drifting free. Soldiers reached the dock just as the current caught them. A rifle leveled at Victor's chest. Elena's hand was in her pocket, fingers closing around the pistol, pulling it free without thinking. She fired twice. The sound was deafening. The soldier staggered back. More shots. The boat's engine roared to life. Victor was steering them downstream, away from the dock, away from the soldiers who were now running along the riverbank trying to keep pace. "Stay down!" Victor shouted over the engine noise. Elena pressed herself flat, covering the smallest child with her body. Bullets punched holes in the boat's hull. Water started seeping in, but they were moving fast now, the city falling away behind them. The soldiers' shots went wild, and then they were around a bend in the river and Vienna was gone. Victor cut the engine, letting them drift. The silence was profound. The father was crying. The mother was trying to soothe the screaming infant. The children huddled together, shock written across their small faces. And Elena sat in the bottom of the bullet-riddled boat, her hands still shaking, the pistol still gripped in her fingers, staring at the blood on Victor's sleeve. "You're hit," she said. "Grazed. It's nothing." But his face was gray. "Victor, we need to get to the rendezvous point. Kohler's people are supposed to meet us downstream. If we don't make it—" He swayed, catching himself against the boat's side. Elena grabbed him. "Sit. Now, before you pass out." "Can't. Have to steer. I'll steer. You're bleeding all over the boat." She forced him down, grabbing the tiller. "Where's the rendezvous?" 2 miles. Small dock. Red marker." His words were slurring. "Elena, if I pass out, you have to—" I know. Get everyone to safety. Don't let them be captured. Die trying if necessary. She met his eyes. I was listening, Victor. I remember the plan. You shot a soldier. I shot at a soldier. I probably missed. You didn't miss. I saw him go down. Something that might have been pride flickered across Victor's face. You saved us.
We're not saved yet. Elena scanned the riverbank, looking for the red marker, looking for soldiers, looking for any sign that this nightmare might end. Stay conscious, please. I need you to tell me what to do when we reach the dock. But Victor's eyes were already closing, his breathing shallow. The blood from his sleeve was pooling in the bottom of the boat. And ahead, Elena could see the red marker, could see figures waiting on the dock, Kohler's men, or soldiers, or something worse. She had exactly 30 seconds to decide whether to trust them. 30 seconds to save 6 lives or lose them all. The boat drifted closer. The figures became clearer. Men with rifles, faces she didn't recognize. Elena's hand tightened on the pistol still in her lap. One of the men raised his hand in a signal. Elena had to choose. Now. She steered toward the dock. The man on the dock wore Kohler's colors, a red band around his arm that matched the marker. But that meant nothing. Colors could be stolen. Signals could be faked. Elena's finger touched the pistol's trigger as the boat bumped against worn wood. Duchess? The man's accent was thick, his eyes wary. We're from Kohler. You're late. We had complications. Elena kept the gun hidden beneath her skirt. Where's Kohler? Waiting at the safe house, 2 miles north. We take you there now. His gaze dropped to the boat's bullet holes, the blood pooling in the hull. You bring trouble? We brought the cargo, 6 people, as agreed. Elena gestured to the huddled family. And my husband needs a doctor. He's been shot. The man whistled low. Bad? Bad enough. Can you help or not? He exchanged glances with the other men, then nodded. We help. Kohler's orders. But we move fast. Soldiers will be searching the river within the hour. They hauled the family out first, the father still shaking, the mother clutching her screaming infant, the children wide-eyed with shock. Elena went last, keeping herself between them and Kohler's men. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Victor was barely conscious when they lifted him from the boat. Blood had soaked through his coat, his shirt, staining everything red. Elena's stomach lurched. Careful with him, she snapped. If he dies, Kohler doesn't get paid. Won't let him die, Duchess. Bad for business. The man grinned, showing missing teeth. This way. Hurry. They moved through woods that smelled of pine and river mud, following paths only Kohler's men seemed to see. The children stumbled, the infant wailed, and Victor's breathing grew more labored with every step. How much further? Elena demanded. Close. Very close. The safe house appeared like a mirage, a hunting lodge half hidden in trees, smoke curling from its chimney. The door opened before they reached it, revealing Kohler himself. Well, he surveyed the bloody group with dark amusement. You've had an eventful morning, Duchess. We need a doctor. Now. Already here. Inside. Bring the Duke. Kohler stepped aside, letting them pass. The family, too. Quickly, before someone sees. The lodge's interior was sparse but clean, rough furniture, a roaring fire, and in the corner an elderly man with a medical bag who looked up sharply as they entered. Gunshot wound, Elena said, helping lower Victor onto a table. Left arm. Maybe 20 minutes ago. The doctor moved fast, cutting away Victor's coat and shirt. The wound was uglier than Elena had hoped. Not just a graze, but a deep furrow that had torn through muscle. Blood welled fresh with every heartbeat. I need boiling water, clean cloth, and everyone who's not helping to move back, the doctor ordered in accented English. Elena didn't move. I'm staying. Duchess. I'm staying. Her voice left no room for argument. The doctor nodded curtly and went to work. Elena held Victor's hand while he dug out the bullet fragments, while he cleaned and stitched and bandaged. Victor's fingers tightened around hers until she thought her bones might break, but he didn't make a sound. Just stared at the ceiling, his jaw locked, sweat pouring down his face. Done, the doctor finally said, stepping back. He'll live, but he needs rest, at least 3 days before traveling. We don't have 3 days, Victor said through gritted teeth. We need to move tonight. Then you'll tear the stitches and bleed to death. Your choice. Kohler had been watching from the doorway. Now he stepped forward. The Duke is right. You can't stay here. The soldiers will be searching. They saw which way the boat went. They'll follow the river, check every safe house within 10 miles. Then we go somewhere they won't look, Elena said. All eyes turned to her. Where's the last place they'd expect to find refugees? Somewhere obvious, Kohler said slowly. Somewhere they've already searched. Vienna. Elena's mind was racing. We go back to the city. Not to hide, but to leave legitimately. The Duke and Duchess of Ravencrest departing Austria after a business trip with 6 new employees. You're mad, the doctor said. The city is crawling with soldiers looking for you. Looking for refugees fleeing in the night, not aristocrats leaving in broad daylight with proper papers and carriages. Elena turned to Kohler. Klaus can forge the employment documents. We dress the family as servants, load them into our carriage in front of the hotel, drive to the train station like we own the world. Who would question a duke traveling with his household staff? The guards at the train station might, Kohler said, but there was interest in his voice. If they recognize the family, they won't. We change their appearance, cut the father's beard, dye the mother's hair, dress the children in uniforms. People see what they expect to see. Elena looked at the huddled family. It's audacious, but that's exactly why it might work. Victor struggled to sit up, his face gray. It's brilliant and insane. Your operation is built on people not looking too closely. This is the same principle. Hide in plain sight. Elena's voice gained strength. Kohler, can you get us back to Vienna without being seen? I can get you anywhere, Duchess, for the right price. The price hasn't changed. £15,000 to get 6 people to Switzerland safely, but we're changing the route. Elena pulled Victor's travel documents from his coat pocket. We'll need train tickets to Geneva, first class, reserved car, and Klaus needs to forge employment contracts by tonight. This is insane, the doctor repeated. This is our best option. Victor's voice was weak but certain. Every hour we stay here increases the risk. Every moment we hesitate gives them time to tighten the net. Elena's right. We move fast. We move bold. We might just pull this off. Kohler studied them both for a long moment. Then he laughed. A sharp bark of sound. You've got spine, both of you. I'll give you that. All right, Duchess, we'll try it your way. But if this goes wrong, if soldiers start shooting, then you run and save yourself. We're not asking you to die for us. Elena met his eyes. Just help us get to that train. After that, we'll handle the rest. Fair enough. Kohler turned to his men. Get them back to Vienna, back entrance of the Imperial Hotel. And someone find Klaus. Tell him we need documents by sunset. The journey back was a blur of back roads and covered wagons, Elena holding Victor upright while he drifted in and out of consciousness. The family huddled in silence, too shocked to speak, too traumatized to do anything but follow orders and hope. When they finally reached the hotel, it was late afternoon. Kohler's men left them at the service entrance with whispered instructions about where to find Klaus. Then they were alone again, Elena, Victor, and 6 terrified refugees in the heart of a city that wanted them dead. Elena got Victor to their suite, leaving the family hidden in a servant's room 3 floors down. She peeled off his blood-soaked bandage, cleaned the wound again, and forced laudanum down his throat until he finally slept. Then she sat in the darkening room and tried not to think about all the ways this could fail. Klaus arrived at sunset with the documents. 6 sets of employment papers so perfect, Elena had to check them twice to find the forgeries. Birth certificates, work histories, letters of recommendation, everything a traveling household staff would need. These are flawless, Elena said. They should be. I've been forging papers for 20 years. Klaus's hands were shaking. But, Duchess, you should know. The soldiers are talking about the river incident. They're saying a noble family helped the fugitives escape. They're not sure it was you yet, but they're asking questions, checking passenger lists, interviewing hotel staff. How long until they connect it to us? Maybe tomorrow, maybe tonight. There was a maid who saw blood in your hallway. Klaus swallowed hard. You need to leave, as soon as possible. We will. First thing in the morning, the Ravencrest household departing for Geneva after a successful business trip. Elena handed him an envelope thick with gold coins. This is for you, Klaus. For everything you've done. Get out of Vienna. Start somewhere else, somewhere safer. Klaus stared at the envelope. This is too much. It's what your work is worth. Take it. Elena gripped his shoulder. And Klaus, thank you for all of it. After he left, Elena went to the family's room. They were huddled together, the children finally asleep, the parents staring at nothing.
Tomorrow morning, you're no longer refugees, Elena said quietly in German. You're employees of the Duke of Ravencrest. The father is our new factory foreman, being trained in textile techniques. The mother and eldest daughter are quality inspectors. The younger children are dependents on the employment roster. What if someone asks questions? The father whispered. Then you let me answer them. Your job is to look bored and tired, like you've been traveling too long. Can you do that? We can try. Don't try, do it. Elena's voice was gentle but firm. I know you're terrified. I know every instinct is screaming at you to run or hide. But tomorrow, you're going to walk through that train station like you belong there, like you're just ordinary workers on an ordinary journey. Because the moment you look scared, the moment you hesitate, that's when people notice. Understand? The mother nodded. We understand. Good. Get some rest. We leave at 8.
Elena returned to her suite to find Victor awake, struggling to dress himself with one arm.
What are you doing? She demanded.
Getting ready. We leave tomorrow. I need to... He swayed, catching himself against the bedpost. You need to sit down before you fall down. Elena pushed him back onto the bed. I've handled everything. The documents are ready. The family knows their roles. Klaus has been paid. All you have to do is look like a duke traveling home with his household. That's all? Victor's laugh was pained. Just look aristocratic while I'm bleeding through my shirt? We'll get you a heavy coat, dark fabric. No one will see the blood. Elena started laying out clothes. Can you stand without passing out? For short periods. That'll have to do. She helped him into a fresh shirt, her fingers careful around the bandage. Victor, if this doesn't work, if something goes wrong at the station, then we improvise, like we've been doing since Vienna went to hell. His good hand caught hers. You're incredible, you know that? Most women would have collapsed by now. You shot a soldier, steered a bullet-riddled boat, convinced a smuggler to change his entire plan, and forged a new identity for 6 people in less than 24 hours. Most women haven't been given a reason to be incredible. You gave me one. Elena squeezed his hand. Now rest. Tomorrow's going to be worse than today. I doubt that's possible. Elena thought of the train station, the guards, the soldiers still searching for fugitives. Don't tempt fate. Morning arrived too fast and too slow. Elena dressed the family herself. Servants' uniforms borrowed from the hotel staff, the mother's hair covered by a scarf, the father's beard trimmed short and neat. The children looked like miniature workers, tired and rumpled. Perfect. Victor managed to dress in layers that hid the bandage, his face pale but determined. When Elena offered to help him down the stairs, he waved her off. I can walk on my own. I just need to look like I can. They assembled in the lobby, the Duke and Duchess of Ravencrest with their traveling household. 6 servants, various luggage, and an air of bored aristocratic impatience that Elena wore like armor. The hotel manager bowed. Your Grace, your carriage is ready. Shall I have your luggage loaded? Please, and do hurry. Our train leaves in an hour. Elena's voice was ice and silk. I do hate being rushed. They loaded into 2 carriages, Victor and Elena in the first, the family in the second with the luggage. As they rolled through Vienna's streets, Elena watched soldiers at every corner, checking papers, questioning travelers. They're looking for us, Victor said quietly. They're looking for desperate refugees. We're not desperate. We're annoyed. Elena straightened her spine. Remember that when we reached the station? You're a duke who's had a tedious business trip and wants to go home. Nothing more. The train station rose ahead, a cathedral of iron and glass swarming with soldiers. Elena's heart tried to climb out of her throat, but she kept her expression perfectly bored as their carriages stopped at the entrance. A guard approached immediately. Papers, please? Elena handed over their documents with the languid grace of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. The Duke and Duchess of Ravencrest. Our train to Geneva departs in 40 minutes. First class. Reserved car. The guard scanned the papers, looked at Victor's pale face. The Duke is ill? The Duke is recovering from a riding accident. Terribly tiresome. Elena's tone suggested the guard was being equally tiresome. Is there a problem? I need to see the papers for your staff as well. Of course. Elena gestured to the second carriage. Though I do hope this won't take long, we have a schedule to maintain. The family descended from the carriage, their faces carefully blank. The father handed over their documents, forged employment contracts, work permits, travel authorization. Elena held her breath as the guard reviewed each one.
The infant, mercifully, was asleep. The children stood in a neat line, patient and bored like children forced to wait always were. Perfect little actors playing their parts. The guard's eyes lingered on the mother. You. Where are you from? Elena's hand moved to her reticule where the pistol waited, but the mother's voice was steady when she answered in accented but clear English. Lynn, sir. Born and raised. Been working for His Grace's textile concern for 3 years now. And you're traveling to England for? Training in new quality control methods, sir. Management says the English techniques are superior. She sounded so convincingly resigned that even Elena almost believed it. The guard stared at her for another long moment. Then he stamped the papers and handed them back. Platform 7. Your reserved car is already boarding. Thank you. Elena didn't let relief show on her face, just took the papers, gestured to the porters, and swept toward the platform like a woman who'd never doubted the outcome. They made it halfway across the station floor before another guard stepped in front of them. Stop. I need to verify these documents again. Elena's blood turned to ice. This guard was older, sharper-eyed. He'd seen the stamp from the first guard, but apparently didn't care. We've already been cleared, Victor said, his voice carrying aristocratic disdain. We have a train to catch. Then you won't mind waiting a few more minutes while I confirm these are legitimate. The guard's smile didn't reach his eyes. There have been irregularities lately, falsified documents. We're being thorough. He pulled out a small book, a registry of some kind, started comparing the employment contracts to entries in his ledger. Elena's mind raced. Klaus had said the forgeries wouldn't survive a registry check. If this guard actually cross-referenced the documents, there. The guard's finger landed on a page. This employee number doesn't match our records. These documents are falsified. The station went silent around them. Other guards turned, hands moving to weapons. Travelers scattered, giving them space. Victor's good hand found Elena's. A goodbye, maybe. Or just solidarity as everything fell apart. Those documents were issued by my personal staff, Elena said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. If there's an error in your registry, I suggest you check with your superiors before accusing a duke's household of forgery. I'm afraid I need to detain these people until you need to step aside before I report your incompetence to my husband's solicitor, the Austrian ambassador to England, and anyone else who might be interested in why a guard with a dusty ledger thinks he can contradict documents bearing the Duke of Ravencrest's personal seal. Elena stepped closer, her voice dropping to something dangerous. Do you know who my husband is? The guard hesitated. Victor Ravencrest, owner of 6 textile factories, 3 shipping concerns, and enough political influence to have you reassigned to the most remote checkpoint in Austria by week's end. Now, are you going to let us board our train, or shall I make your day significantly worse? The guard's face flushed. Around them, other travelers were watching now, whispering. A scene was forming, and scenes drew attention. I was simply following procedure, Your Grace. I apologize if I caused offense. He stepped back, his hand moving away from his weapon. Please, proceed to your platform. How generous! Elena swept past him, the family falling into line behind her. Every step felt like walking on broken glass. Every second she expected shouts, rifles, the sound of their plan dying in gunfire. But they reached the platform, boarded the train, found their reserved car, and as the locomotive pulled away from Vienna's station, Elena finally allowed herself to breathe. The family collapsed into seats, the children crying openly now, the parents holding each other and shaking. Victor leaned against the window, his face the color of old parchment. Elena stood in the corridor, watching Vienna dissolve into distance, and felt something inside her shift. They'd done it. Against impossible odds, they'd actually done it. That was the most terrifying performance I've ever witnessed. Victor's voice was soft. How did you know he'd back down? I didn't. I just knew he was more afraid of making a scene and being wrong than he was invested in being right. Elena turned from the window. Bureaucrats are predictable that way. You're terrifying when you want to be. Good. Maybe people will stop underestimating me. She moved to check his bandage, which was seeping blood again. You need to rest. We have 18 hours to Geneva. Use them. The journey passed in a blur of countryside and border crossings, each checkpoint a fresh terror that Elena faced with the same cold, aristocratic disdain that had gotten them out of Vienna. The family played their parts perfectly, tired servants, bored by travel, interested only in reaching their destination.
At the Swiss border, the guards barely glanced at their papers before waving them through. Swiss neutrality meant refugees were someone else's problem. Elena could have kissed the ground. Geneva appeared at dawn, gray and beautiful and safe. Kohler was waiting at the station with a carriage. £15,000, he said without preamble. As agreed. Victor handed him the second case of gold, his hand steady despite the fever in his eyes. They're safe now. Safe as anywhere. I have people who'll get them to England within the week. After that, they're your problem. Kohler looked at Elena with something like respect. You have steel in you, Duchess. Most people would have broken. Most people haven't had a reason not to. Elena turned to the family, who were gathered near the carriage. You'll be met in Dover. Someone from our household will bring you to Ravencrest Hall. You'll work there if you want. Real work, paid fairly. Or we'll help you start somewhere else. Whatever you choose, you're free now. The father stepped forward, tears streaming down his face. Thank you. We have no words. Just thank you. Save your family. Build something good. That's all the thanks I need. Elena embraced the mother, felt the woman's fragile shoulders shake with sobs. Be safe. Be happy. Remember you survived. As Kohler's carriage pulled away with the family, Victor swayed against the station wall. Elena caught him before he fell. That's it. We're finding a doctor. Now. We did it, Victor said, his voice slurred with exhaustion and blood loss. 6 people. Safe. We did it. Elena supported his weight, flagging down another carriage. Now, let's make sure you survive long enough to save the next ones. The doctor in Geneva was efficient and discreet, asking no questions as he cleaned and rebandaged Victor's wound. When he finished, his expression was grave. Another day traveling, and you would have developed sepsis. You're lucky, Your Grace. Luck had nothing to do with it. Victor glanced at Elena. I had help. They spent 3 days in Geneva recovering before boarding a ship to Dover. The voyage was uneventful, gray seas, colder weather, but peace. Actual, blessed peace. On deck one evening, Elena stood watching the coast of France disappear into mist. Victor joined her, his arm still in a sling but his color finally returning. I've been thinking about the network, he said quietly, about how we operate. We've been reactive, waiting for families to find us, moving them when it's almost too late. But what you did in Vienna, the way you thought 3 steps ahead, that's what we need. Strategy, planning, someone who sees the whole board. What are you saying? I'm saying I need a partner, not just someone managing safe houses, someone who helps run the entire operation, makes decisions, builds new routes, challenges my assumptions. He turned to face her. I'm saying you're better at this than I expected, better than I am at some aspects, and I'd be a fool not to use that. Elena studied his face, looking for manipulation, found only honesty. You want me as an equal partner. I want you as whatever you want to be. But yes, equal would be preferable. Victor's mouth quirked. You shot a soldier and blackmailed your way onto a train using nothing but aristocratic fury. I'd say you've earned it. I didn't blackmail. Elena stopped, smiled despite herself. All right. I blackmailed him a little. It was magnificent. Victor held out his good hand. Partners? Elena took it. Partners. But I want full access to all the network communications. I want to know every operation, every contact, every plan. No more secrets. No more secrets, Victor agreed, though I reserve the right to protect you from information that would put you in direct danger. Absolutely not. If I'm in this, I'm in all the way. That was the deal. That could get you killed. Everything could get me killed. That's the work. Elena's grip tightened. I'm not fragile, Victor. Stop treating me like I'll break. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. All right, full partnership, full transparency. But if you ever change your mind, I won't. Elena looked out at the endless gray sea. I found something in Vienna. Purpose, maybe. Or just proof that I'm capable of more than I thought. Either way, I'm not going back. To what? To being the desperate girl who signed a contract to save her family. That's done. I'm someone else now. Who are you now? Elena considered the question, thought of the soldier she'd shot, the family she'd saved, the performance that had gotten them all out alive. Thought of the woman staring back from her reflection in the train window, hard and sharp and utterly unfamiliar. I'm the Duchess of Ravencrest, she said finally, and I'm going to help you burn the whole corrupt system down. Victor's smile was fierce. I was hoping you'd say that.
They reached Ravencrest Hall a week later to find it transformed. The family from Vienna was already there, the children playing in the gardens, the parents learning their new roles. Mrs. Hartley had integrated them seamlessly into the household staff. Real positions, real work, but also safety and freedom. And waiting in Victor's study was a stack of letters 3 inches high. Requests, Mrs. Hartley explained. Families needing help. Some from Austria, some from Germany, one from as far as Romania. Word is spreading, Your Grace, about what you did in Vienna. Elena stared at the letters. Each one represented lives hanging in the balance. Children, parents, people whose only crime was being different. How many? She asked. 43 families, 217 people total. The number was staggering, impossible. They'd barely saved 6 people and nearly died doing it. We can't save them all, Victor said quietly. No. Elena picked up the first letter, scanning the desperate words. But we can save some of them, and then some more. And we keep going until we can't anymore. That's not a plan. That's martyrdom. That's the work. Elena looked at him. You've been doing this alone for 3 years. Now you have help. Real help. We can build something bigger. Something that lasts. Victor moved to the map on the wall, adding new marks in red ink. We'd need more safe houses, more contacts, more money. We have money, and we can recruit contacts, people like Klaus who want to help but don't know how. As for safe houses, we use your estates. All of them. Turn them into waypoints on a route that actually functions. Elena's mind was already racing ahead, seeing possibilities. We create a system, not just reactive escapes, but proactive extraction. We find the families before they're desperate, get them out before the raids happen. That would require intelligence, spies. So we recruit spies, people in government offices, police departments, registry bureaus, people who can warn us before the roundups start. Elena was pacing now, energy flowing through her. We turn your network into something that actually works, something efficient, something that will get us both hanged if we're caught. We were already going to get hanged, might as well deserve it. Victor stared at her. Then he laughed, a real laugh, startled and genuine. When I married you, I thought I was getting a competent household manager. I got a revolutionary instead. You got both. I'm excellent at organizing. Elena gestured to the letters. So let's organize. Let's start with the most urgent cases. Build out from there. And Victor? Yes? Next time someone tries to inspect our documents at a train station, you're the one who blackmails the guard. I've done my share. Noted. Victor was smiling now, the first real smile Elena had seen from him. Welcome to the revolution, Duchess. I've been here for weeks. You're just now noticing. Elena started sorting the letters into piles. Urgent, important, pending. Now stop standing there looking impressed and help me save these people. We have work to do. They worked through the night. The two of them bent over maps and letters and coded messages, planning routes, identifying resources, building something that could actually sustain itself. Somewhere during those hours, Elena realized she was happy. Terrified, exhausted, and way over her head, but happy. This was what she'd been missing all those years in London, playing the dutiful daughter. Purpose. Partnership. The knowledge that what she did mattered. When dawn broke over Ravencrest Hall, they had a plan. Ambitious, dangerous, probably impossible. But a plan nonetheless. Ready? Victor asked. Elena looked at the map, at the lives they were about to try to save, at the future they were building from desperation and hope. Ready, she said, and meant it. 3 months into their expanded operation, Elena discovered the traitor. It wasn't dramatic. No confrontation, no smoking gun. Just a pattern in the coded messages that didn't quite align. Routes that failed more often when certain people knew about them. Families that arrived at safe houses to find them already raided. She spread the communications across Victor's desk, her finger tracing the inconsistencies. Look at this. Every operation that Thomas coordinated in the last 6 weeks has failed. Every single one. Victor leaned over her shoulder, his jaw tightening as he saw what she'd seen. Thomas Whitmore, one of their most trusted contacts in London, a clerk in the Foreign Office who'd been feeding them information about border policies for 2 years. It could be coincidence, Victor said, but his voice lacked conviction. 6 failures in 6 weeks isn't coincidence, it's sabotage. Elena pulled out another letter. And look at this. The raid in Munich that almost caught the Becker family. Thomas knew that route. He knew the timing. If he's selling information, then he's killed people. The Schmidt family that disappeared in Berlin, the Rosenbergs who never made it out of Prague. Elena's hands were shaking with fury. How many, Victor? How many lives has he destroyed? Victor's face was granite. I'll handle it. How? What does handle it mean? It means he made his choice. Now he faces the consequences. Victor was already moving toward the door. Stay here. I'll deal with Thomas. What are you going to do? But Elena already knew. She'd seen this version of Victor before. Cold, calculated, lethal. The man who broke arms and destroyed enemies. What I should have done the first time someone betrayed this network. Make an example. Victor pulled on his coat, his movements sharp. We can't afford mercy, Elena. Not with this. If people think they can betray us without consequences, then we become exactly what they say we are. Elena moved between him and the door. Murderers, thugs, everything society already believes. I don't care what society believes, but I do. And more importantly, the people we're trying to save do. If word spreads that we execute traitors, that we're as brutal as the regimes we're fighting, who's going to trust us? Elena pressed her hands against his chest. There has to be another way. There isn't. Thomas knows too much. Our routes, our contacts, our methods. If we let him walk away, he'll sell everything to the highest bidder. More families will die. More operations will fail. Victor's voice was ice. I won't let that happen. Neither will I. But killing him solves nothing. It just creates more problems. Elena's mind was racing. What if we use him? What? He's a traitor. Fine. But he's our traitor now. We know what he is. We can control what information he has access to. Feed him false intelligence. Let him sell it to whoever's paying him. Elena could see the plan forming. We turn his betrayal into an advantage. Make our enemies chase ghosts while we move the real operations through different channels. Victor stared at her. That's risky. Complicated. Possibly insane. Elena met his eyes. But it's better than murder, and it might actually work. If it doesn't, if Thomas figures out what we're doing, then we deal with it. But we try this first. Please, Victor, let me try. The silence stretched between them. Elena could see the war in Victor's eyes, the part of him that wanted swift, brutal justice against the part that was learning to trust her judgment. One chance, he said finally. You get one chance to make this work. If it fails, if more people die because of your mercy, then I'll pull the trigger myself. Elena's voice was steady. But I don't think it will come to that. They confronted Thomas together 3 days later in a safe house on the outskirts of London. He arrived expecting a routine meeting. Instead, he found Elena sitting at the table with documents spread before her. Every failed operation, every suspicious coincidence, the full weight of his betrayal laid bare. Your Grace. Thomas's face went pale. I don't understand. Don't. Elena's voice cut through his pretense like a blade. We're past lying now. I know you've been selling information. I know about the money depositing into your account in Amsterdam. I know everything, Thomas. The only question is what happens next. Thomas looked at Victor, standing by the door with his arms crossed. No escape there. His shoulders sagged. How long have you known? Long enough to verify everything. Short enough that you might still survive this. Elena gestured to the chair across from her. Sit, and tell me who you're working for. I can't. You can. And you will. Because the alternative is my husband demonstrating exactly why people fear the Duke of Ravencrest. Elena's voice was calm, almost gentle. I'm offering you a choice, Thomas. Help us now. Truly help us, and you might live through this. Refuse, and... She left the threat unfinished. Thomas sat, his hands shaking. His name is Volker, German intelligence. He approached me 6 months ago, said he knew what the network was doing, threatened to expose everything if I didn't cooperate. So you chose to cooperate. Victor's voice dripped contempt. How many died because of that choice? I didn't know they would. I thought they just wanted information, not... Thomas's voice broke. I didn't want people to die. But they did die. Elena forced herself to stay calm. The Schmidt family, the Rosenbergs. How many others, Thomas? I don't know. I swear I don't know. Volker never told me what happened after I passed along the information. I was trying to protect my own family. My wife, my children. If the network was exposed, if my name came out,
So you sacrifice strangers to save yourself. Elena's disgust was palpable. How noble. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't. I know it's not enough, but I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't bring them back. Victor pushed off from the door. Give me one reason not to kill you right now. Because I can help. The words tumbled out desperately. Volker thinks I'm still working for him. I can feed him false information, lead him away from your real operations. I can make this right. You can't make this right, but you can make it less wrong. Elena pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to continue your relationship with Volker. You're going to give him exactly the information we tell you to give him. Nothing more, nothing less. And you're going to report back to us on everything he asks, everything he says, every detail of his operation. You want me to be a double agent. I want you to repay your debt in the only currency you have left. Information. Elena's eyes were steel. You'll live under constant surveillance. One of our people will shadow you at all times. Any deviation from our instructions, any attempt to contact Volker outside our knowledge, any sign of continued betrayal, and Victor gets what he wants. Do you understand? Thomas nodded, tears streaming down his face. I understand. Good. Because this is your only chance. There won't be another. Elena stood. Now, tell me everything about Volker. His methods, his contacts, what he knows about our network. Every detail. Thomas talked for 3 hours. By the end, Elena had a complete picture of the threat they were facing. Not just one German agent, but an entire intelligence apparatus dedicated to infiltrating and destroying refugee networks across Europe. Volker was just one operative. There were others. Many others. They're coordinating, Elena said to Victor after Thomas left, escorted by 2 of their most trusted people. Sharing information across borders, building a network to counter our network. Then we need to be smarter, faster, more careful. Victor stared at the notes Elena had taken. This changes everything. It changes our tactics, not our mission. Elena started organizing the information, seeing patterns. They're looking for us in the obvious places, ports, train stations, border checkpoints. So we go where they're not looking, smaller towns, remote routes, places too insignificant to monitor closely. That's slower, more expensive, but safer, and we need safe right now more than we need fast. Elena marked new routes on the map. We also need to compartmentalize. No single person should know the entire operation. If someone else turns traitor, they can only damage their small piece. Victor watched her work, something like admiration in his eyes. You're a natural at this. I'm a survivor. That's different. Elena didn't look up from the map. But I'm learning, and so is Volker. We need to stay ahead of him. Over the next 2 months, they rebuilt the network from the ground up. New routes, new contacts, new protocols that made betrayal harder and less damaging. Thomas fed false information to Volker, operations that didn't exist, routes that led nowhere, safe houses that were actually traps. And slowly, their success rate improved. Families made it through. The failures stopped. The network grew stronger. But Elena knew it couldn't last. Eventually, Volker would realize he was being deceived. Eventually, the game would end. And when it did, everything would come crashing down. The crash came on a cold November morning. Elena was in the library reviewing supply requisitions when Mrs. Hartley rushed in, her face pale. Your Grace, someone's here to see you. Says it's urgent. Says you'll want to hear what he has to say. Who? He wouldn't give his name, just said to tell you he's from Vienna and that Klaus is dead. Elena's blood turned to ice. She found Victor in his study, and together they went to meet the stranger, a young man, maybe 20, with frightened eyes and a bleeding wound on his shoulder. Who are you? Victor demanded. Peter, I worked with Klaus. I was there when they came for him. Peter swayed on his feet. They knew about everything. The forgeries, the network, all of it. They arrested Klaus 3 days ago, tortured him for information. He held out as long as he could, but his voice broke. He's dead, and they're coming for you next. Elena felt the floor tilt beneath her. How much did he tell them? Everything he knew, routes, contacts, safe houses. Peter pulled a blood-stained letter from his coat. He managed to get this out before they killed him. Said to warn you, said to tell you Volker isn't working alone. He's coordinating with someone in England. Someone close to you. Victor tore open the letter, his face darkening as he read. Then he looked up, his eyes meeting Elena's. It's not Thomas. Someone else. Someone in our inner circle.
That's impossible. Everyone in the core network has been vetted. Klaus wrote their name. Victor's voice was hollow. Robert Ashford. Elena's world shattered. Robert Ashford, Victor's steward, the man who'd been managing the estate's finances and logistics for 5 years. The man who knew every safe house, every contact, every operation. The man they'd trusted with everything. No. The word came out strangled. Robert wouldn't. He's been with us from the beginning. He's been selling us out from the beginning. Victor was already moving, shouting orders to Mrs. Hartley. Lockdown protocols now. Everyone in the core network needs to be warned. Every operation currently running needs to be aborted, and someone find Robert Ashford before he disappears. But they were too late. Robert's room was empty, his belongings gone. He'd fled sometime during the night, taking with him detailed records of every family they'd saved, every person they'd ever employed, every vulnerable point in the network. He'll give it all to Volker, Elena said, her voice numb. Everything we've built, everyone we've saved. He'll destroy it all. Not if we move first. Victor was at his desk, writing furiously. We evacuate everyone, every safe house, every contact, everyone currently in transit. We go dark completely, shut down the network for as long as it takes to rebuild from scratch. That could take months, and the family's waiting for help. We'll have to wait longer. Because if we keep operating with Volker having our complete network map, we're not saving anyone. We're just feeding them to the wolves. Victor looked up, his face haggard. We lost, Elena. Robert won. We need to accept that and salvage what we can. No. The word came out fierce. We didn't lose. We're losing. That's different. How? Because losing means we have time to change the outcome. And I have an idea. Elena's mind was racing, pieces clicking together. Robert knows our network, fine. But Volker doesn't know about Thomas. We kept that operation completely separate. Only the 3 of us knew Thomas was compromised and working for us. So we use that. We tell Thomas to feed Volker information about a major operation, something big enough that Volker will commit serious resources to stopping it. We make it look real, rent a warehouse, stage documents, create the appearance of a massive extraction attempt. Elena was pacing now, the plan forming as she spoke. And while Volker and his people are focused on that, while Robert is patting himself on the back for exposing us, we move the real operations through completely different channels. Routes Robert never knew about because we just created them. Victor stared. You want to run a false flag operation using our own traitor as bait. I want to make Robert's betrayal worthless. He sold Volker information about a network that's about to stop existing. By the time Volker realizes the intelligence is outdated, we'll have built something new, something Robert can't betray because he doesn't know it exists. That's... Victor stopped, started to smile. That's brilliant and absolutely insane. All the best plans are. Elena pulled out fresh paper. How fast can we relocate everyone? 72 hours if we push hard. Then we push hard, and we give Thomas something spectacular to sell to Volker, something he can't resist. They worked through the night, crafting a false operation so detailed and convincing that even Elena almost believed it. A massive extraction of 200 people through Dover, complete with ship manifests, cargo lists, and timing down to the minute. All of it completely fabricated. Thomas delivered the information to Volker with trembling hands and a performance worthy of the stage. Volker believed every word. Robert confirmed the intelligence from his stolen records, never knowing the records were deliberately planted for him to steal. And while Volker mobilized his entire operation to Dover to catch 200 refugees who didn't exist, Elena and Victor moved 12 real families through a small fishing village in Cornwall that Robert had never heard of. The Dover operation collapsed in spectacular fashion. Volker waited for hours for refugees who never came. When he finally realized he'd been deceived, he went to Robert demanding answers. Robert, realizing his stolen intelligence was worthless, disappeared into the night. And the network, the real network, the one Elena had been quietly building in the shadows, continued operating. But the victory was hollow. Klaus was still dead. Robert was still out there, dangerous and unpredictable. And Volker knew he'd been played. The next attack would be worse. A week after Dover, Victor found Elena in the library, staring at Klaus's blood-stained letter. You're thinking about him, Victor said quietly. I'm thinking about all of them. Klaus. The people we couldn't save. The ones who died because we weren't fast enough or smart enough or careful enough.
Elena's voice cracked. We won in Dover, but it doesn't feel like winning. Because winning in this work never does. We save some. We lose others. We keep moving forward because stopping means everyone dies. Victor sat beside her. Klaus knew the risks. He chose to keep helping anyway, just like you did, just like all of us do. It shouldn't be this hard. Saving lives shouldn't require this much blood and lies and sacrifice. No, it shouldn't. But the world doesn't care about should. It only cares about what is. And what is a choice between doing something or doing nothing. Victor took her hand. You could walk away, Elena. Take your family's money, live comfortably. Forget any of this ever happened. No one would blame you.
I would blame me. Elena squeezed his hand. I'm in this, all the way, until we can't do it anymore. Then we rebuild. Again. And we make sure Klaus didn't die for nothing. They rebuilt, recruited new contacts, established new routes, created protocols so complex that even if someone stole the records, they'd be meaningless without the cipher keys Elena designed. The network grew stronger, smarter, more resilient.
6 months later, they'd successfully extracted over 80 families. The operation had evolved from desperate rescues into something approaching efficiency. Elena had learned to code messages, forge documents, and talk her way through checkpoints with enough aristocratic disdain to make guards second-guess themselves, and slowly word began to spread. Not about the Duke of Ravencrest's brutality, but about the people he was protecting, about the network that saved lives while governments looked away. One afternoon, a letter arrived bearing the seal of Lord Pemberton, one of Parliament's most influential members. Elena opened it, expecting demands or threats. Instead, she found an offer. He wants to meet, she told Victor, rereading the letter. Says he knows what we're doing, says he wants to help. It's a trap. Maybe. Or maybe someone finally has the courage to acknowledge what's happening and do something about it. Elena looked at the letter again. He's offering funding, political protection, official channels to help refugees instead of smuggling them. If we accept, we expose the network. We give up control. If we accept, we might be able to save hundreds instead of dozens, maybe thousands. Elena met Victor's eyes. We've been operating in the shadows because we had to, but what if we don't have to anymore? What if there are people willing to stand with us? Victor was quiet for a long time. If this goes wrong, if Pemberton is setting us up, then we disappear and start over, like we always do. But what if it goes right? They met Lord Pemberton in London, in his private study, with guards stationed outside in case it went badly. He was older than Elena expected, with kind eyes, and the careful manner of someone who'd spent years in politics, learning when to speak and when to listen. Your Grace, Your Grace, he gestured to chairs. Thank you for coming. I imagine this took considerable courage. Or considerable stupidity, Victor said. We'll see which. Pemberton smiled. Fair enough. I'll be direct. I know about your network. I know you've been moving refugees out of Europe for years. And I know that you've saved more lives doing illegal work than the government has saved through legal channels. And you want to stop us. I want to help you. Pemberton pulled out documents. There are others in Parliament who see what's happening on the continent, who understand that policies need to change. But we need leverage, evidence, stories that put human faces on the abstract threat. You have those stories, those faces. Help us make the case for reform. In exchange for what? Elena asked. Protection, funding, legal channels that make your work safer and more effective. We can establish official refugee programs. Immigration pathways, systems that don't require you to risk execution every time you save a family. Pemberton leaned forward. I can't promise it will be fast. Political change never is. But I can promise that you'll have allies, and that's worth something. Victor and Elena exchanged glances. A whole conversation in a look. The risk, the potential, the terror of trusting someone new. We'd need guarantees, Elena said. Protection for everyone in our network, no prosecutions for past activities, complete amnesty. I can arrange that. And we maintain control of operations. We're not turning this over to bureaucrats who'll drown families in paperwork while they die waiting for approval. You'd work with the government, not for it. Your network becomes the implementation arm of official policy. We provide the legal framework and funding. You provide the expertise and operations. It was everything they'd hoped for, which made Elena deeply suspicious. Why? Why help us? What's in this for you? Pemberton's expression turned somber. My sister married a Jewish professor. They live in Berlin. 3 months ago, I got a letter saying they were being watched, being threatened. I've tried everything official, diplomatic channels, visa applications, appeals to the German government. Nothing works. The system is designed to fail. He met Elena's eyes. I need you to get them out, and then I need to make sure this never happens to anyone else. The room fell silent. Elena saw the truth in Pemberton's face, the fear, the desperation, the same helpless fury that had driven her into this work. We'll get them out, she said, and then we'll talk about changing the system. They extracted Pemberton's sister and her family within 2 weeks, a textbook operation that went off without incident. And true to his word, Pemberton began the slow work of political reform. Immigration policies shifted, refugee programs expanded, public opinion started to turn. It wasn't perfect. The changes were incremental, frustrating, slower than anyone wanted, but they were real, and they were growing. 2 years after Elena had married Victor in a cold registry office, she stood in Parliament's gallery watching a vote that would establish formal refugee protections. The motion passed by a narrow margin, but it passed. We did it, she whispered. Victor's hand found hers. You did it. This was your idea, your strategy. Our work. Elena squeezed his hand. I couldn't have done any of this without you. That's mutual. Victor's voice was soft. You know, when I married you, I thought I was getting a convenient solution to a social problem. I got a revolution instead. And when I married you, I thought I was selling myself to survive. I found purpose instead. Elena turned to face him. We make a good team. We make an excellent team. Victor's expression turned serious. The network is evolving. With Pemberton's backing and official channels opening up, we can do more, save more. But it means going public. No more shadows, no more secrecy. The Duke and Duchess of Ravencrest, publicly supporting refugee causes. Society will have opinions. Society always has opinions, usually wrong ones. Elena smiled. Let them talk. We'll be too busy saving lives to care. That evening, they hosted a dinner at Ravencrest Hall, a gathering of the network's core members, the families they'd saved, and the new allies who'd joined their cause. The dining room was packed, conversation flowing in half a dozen languages, children playing while adults planned the next operations. Elena stood at the window watching the scene and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Contentment. Not happiness, exactly. The work was too hard and the losses too real for simple happiness. But satisfaction, purpose. The knowledge that she was exactly where she needed to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. Your Grace? It was the professor from Vienna, the first family they'd saved. His children had grown in 2 years, thriving in the safety Elena and Victor had bought them. I wanted to thank you again, for everything. You've thanked me enough. How's the factory position working out? Perfectly. Though I suspect you created it specifically for me rather than because you actually needed another manager. Maybe, but you're good at it, so the fiction serves us both. Elena smiled. Your daughter starts university next year, doesn't she? Cambridge. She wants to study medicine. The professor's eyes shone with tears. Because of you. Because you gave us a future. She has dreams again. Elena's throat tightened. Make sure those dreams come true. That's all the thanks I need. After he left, Victor joined her at the window. You're thinking too much again. I'm thinking we've come a long way from Dover, from Vienna, from that ballroom where I threw a glass at your head. You didn't throw it at my head. You dropped it after insulting Pembroke. Victor's mouth curved. Though I wouldn't have minded if you had. Would have made the evening more interesting. Everything with you is interesting, terrifying, occasionally illegal, but never boring. Elena leaned against him, allowing herself the rare comfort of his presence. Do you ever regret it? Marrying me instead of finding someone easier? Every day. Victor's voice was dry. You're stubborn, argumentative, and you have a terrible habit of being right when I want you to be wrong. And yet I can't imagine doing this with anyone else. You're my partner, Elena, in every sense that matters. The best decision I ever made was offering you that contract. The best decision I ever made was signing it. Elena turned to face him properly. Though I should probably thank Pembroke. If he hadn't been such a pompous ass, I might have married him instead. Then we should send him a gift. Maybe a nice cravat. Victor's smile faded into something more serious. I love you. I don't think I've said that before.
Should have. But I'm saying it now. The words landed like stones in still water, sending ripples through everything Elena thought she understood about their relationship. You love me. Is that so surprising? Yes. No, maybe. Elena's heart was doing complicated things in her chest. We agreed this was a business arrangement, separate lives. No expectations of things change, people change, I changed. Victor's hand came up to cup her face. Somewhere between Vienna and Dover, between codes and safe houses, and all the impossible things we've done together, I fell in love with you. If that complicates our arrangement, Elena kissed him, not gently, not carefully, but with 2 years of partnership and danger and slowly built trust behind it. When she pulled back, Victor looked stunned. I love you too, Elena said. And yes, it complicates everything. But we're good at complicated. We are. Victor pulled her closer. So what now? Now we keep doing the work, keep saving lives, keep building something that matters. Elena looked out at their gathered network, people from a dozen countries speaking different languages, united by shared purpose. And we do it together. No more separate lives, actual partners. In everything. In everything, Victor agreed. Though I'm keeping my own study. Your organizational system gives me headaches. And I'm keeping final say on operations. Your tendency to threaten people needs supervision. Fair. Victor kissed her forehead. We really are terrible at traditional marriage, aren't we? The best marriages usually are. Elena turned back to the window, to the future spreading out before them. Come on. We have speeches to make and donors to charm. The revolution won't fund itself. They walked back into the dining room together, the Duke and Duchess of Ravencrest, partners in a cause that had transformed them both. Around them, the network they'd built buzzed with life and hope, and the steady work of making the world slightly less terrible. It wasn't perfect. There would be more traitors, more losses, more nights when the weight of it all felt crushing. But there would also be more victories, more families saved, more lives changed. And at the end of it all, Elena would look back on that desperate choice in Lord Ashford's study, the moment she'd signed her name in ink and changed everything, and know she'd made the right call. Not because it had been easy, but because it had been worth it. The girl who'd stood on that terrace, terrified and desperate, would barely recognize the woman Elena had become. Harder, sharper, but also stronger, more certain, more herself than she'd ever been. Victor raised his glass, calling the room to order. To the families we've saved, he said, and the ones we'll save tomorrow, to the work that never ends, and to the people brave enough to do it anyway. To courage, Elena added, to purpose, to choosing the hard right over the easy wrong, and to all of us who decided that if the world won't save itself, we'll do it ourselves. The room erupted in cheers. Glasses clinked, conversations resumed, and somewhere in the noise and warmth and controlled chaos of their growing movement, Elena caught Victor's eye. He smiled. She smiled back. And without words, they understood what they'd built together. Not just a network, not just an operation, but a legacy. A proof that two unlikely people making an impossible choice could change the world in ways that mattered. And that was worth every risk, every sacrifice, every terrifying moment that had brought them here. Elena raised her glass to the room, to the future, to the revolution they'd started with nothing but desperation and stubborn hope. To us, she said quietly, just for Victor. And to every impossible thing we'll do next. To us, Victor echoed, and to the impossible. We seem to be excellent at it. They were. And as the evening stretched on and the plans grew bolder and the network expanded into something that might actually change the world, Elena knew they'd keep being excellent at it. Together. Always together. Partners in the truest sense. The Duke and Duchess of Ravencrest, who'd started as strangers bound by a contract and become something far more powerful. A force that refused to look away. That chose action over comfort. That turned fear into purpose and desperation into strength. And in the years to come, when people asked how it all began, they'd tell the story of a desperate bargain in a ruthless world, of a woman who refused to break, of a man who learned that strength and compassion weren't enemies, of two people who chose each other, and in doing so saved hundreds more. That was the legacy. That was the truth. That was what mattered. And it was just the beginning.